Good morning. Good morning. I now call the January 22nd, 2026 Administrative Briefing and Work Session of the Marion County School Board to order at 9 a.m. Please silence your electronic devices to avoid disturbing others. Mirroring and modeling how students begin each day, I ask that you please pause with us for a moment of silence. Please join me. I will now read the board commitment statement. We are the Marion County School District Leadership Team. When we come together to work, we are efficient, effective, and productive. Our three most important characteristics are dedicated, transparent, and individually responsible. To work well together, we must demonstrate respect, confront reality, and be accountable. We will always put students first, and we will leave a legacy of success. I'll ask the school board attorney to explain the rules for this public workshop. Good morning, Attorney Powers.
Good morning. Madam Clerk, do we have any speakers registered?
Not at this time.
Not, then we may continue.
All right, Ms. Martinez-Young, can you please provide the proof of publication for today's meeting?
The notice for the January 22nd, 2026 work session was published in the Ocala Gazette on January 9th, 2026, excuse me. Proof of publication has been attached to board docs under proof of publication.
Thank you, and I will give it over to Dr. Brewer for her superintendent's briefing.
Okay, good morning, board. I have an exciting announcement to make for our magnet school. So I'm going to list out some of our recognitions we received yesterday from Magnet Schools of America. This year we had 12 schools that completed the pretty thorough, it's a pretty complicated application process, and 8 schools were recognized. And so we believe this is the most schools that we have that have been awarded some level of recognition. So I would like to announce these. We have 6 schools that were given the Merit Awards of Distinction. That is Madison Street Academy, Bellevue Middle School, which was a new application, Howard Middle School, which is a repeat and consecutive, North Marion Middle School, which is a repeat recognition, Dunellen High School. This is their 5th year with this same award. And then North Marion High School, which also is a repeat award. We also had 1 school that received the Merit Award of Excellence. This is Bellevue High School. This is a repeat winner of the Merit School of Excellence Award. And this is a new one for us, Vanguard High School. This is their first time applying, and Vanguard High School was earned the Top School of Excellence Merit Award. So that's a really big accomplishment for all of our magnet schools, and we are just excited for those programs and the work they're doing for all of our students. The other recognition I'd just like to say publicly, I shared this with the committee members yesterday, but the work that the Attendance Boundary Advisory Committee, the work they did in the last couple months was pretty impressive. They stopped everything they were doing to commit to us, and they met 4 times, including yesterday, to really look at the data that we had at this point to address our utilization and our enrollment numbers in our north end. And so I'm very excited about the recommendations that they have come forward with, and Mr. Whitehouse will present that today. But we do want the committee to know that this is going to be an annual process. We understand that each year things are changing, more developments are being purchased and built, and so this is not a one-time committee. This is going to be an annual basis committee, and decisions will be based on new growth in the areas that our children live. And then last but not least, we have a couple changes for our presenters, and I'll share those later during the referendum conversation for that presentation, but I can share that after our first presentation today, which is the compliance inspection report.
Awesome. Well, then we will start with the compliance inspection report. I believe Ms. Cynthia Barnes or Chief McFadden. Thank you.
Good morning. I'm not Miss Barnes. She's out today, not feeling too well. But she did leave me with some good information. So good morning. Good morning, Chair James, Dr. James, members of the board, Superintendent Dr. Brewer. Florida State Statute 1001.212 required the Department of Education's Office of Safe Schools to develop a Florida School Safety Compliance Inspection Report to document compliance or non-compliance with school safety requirements mandated by law or rule in adherence to established school safety best practices to evaluate the safety, security, and emergency response of the schools. At the end of each quarter, the Office of Safe Schools provides a report to the district, school superintendent, and school safety specialists identifying the number and percentage of schools, including charter schools, inspected or re-inspected during that quarter, and the number and percentage of schools with no school safety requirement deficiencies. The compliance inspections contain confidential information. Therefore, to maintain the safety and security of the district, the report does not contain detailed information. The 2025 to 2026 second quarterly reports for Marion County Public Schools contains the following. The number of schools inspected or re-inspected was 6. The percentage of schools inspected or re-inspected was about 10.5%. The number of inspected schools with no school safety requirement deficiencies were 6. The percentage of inspected schools with no school safety requirement deficiencies, this quarter, we met 100%. So there was no major issues. Like I said, normally it's some type of paperwork or documentation type issue, something that could be fixed up immediately. But in this quarter here, we were 100% with no issues.
Thank you, Mr. McFadden.
Okay.
The lights of God just shined down on us, so we were all a little shocked here for a second.
Yes, you know,
It
it just hits sometimes.
Very bright all of a sudden.
Celebrating that 100%.
Yeah, yes,
Thank
but thank you, Mr. McFadden. And we do also board, in case you didn't hear, Mr. McFadden did share with me that we now have the push panic bar buttons on all of these doors. So now the only doors unlocked during our scheduled meetings are the center doors for entrance into the auditorium. Obviously, all can be exited, but the only doors for entrance are the ones in the center, like we discussed previously. All right, well, thank you, and that concludes. Is there any public comment on the compliance inspection reports? All right, hearing none, we will move on to our referendum renewal. Dr. Brewer, who do you have coming forward today for our referendum renewal?
Thank you. We have our Chief Financial Officer, Mr. Rios Welsh. He will present. I do want to make note that we have Brooke Hutto is here today. She will provide the information on the art and music. On the slide, it says charity. We'll do that, but that was from ICROC last week. And Melissa Connor, Executive Director of K-12, will present on the career and technical education portion. Thank you, Mr. Welsh.
Okay, good morning, Board, Chair James, Dr. Brewer. We're going to go through our referendum presentation, which we actually just had our ICROC presentation, so some of this is going to sound very familiar for those in the audience that tuned into that presentation. So I'm Mr. Robert Rios Wells, Chief Financial Officer for Marion County Public Schools. Today we're going to take a clear look at how our referendum dollars are being used responsibly, transparently, and with the greatest impact for our students, staff, and community. I'll share where we stand with our current funds, how they're being allocated, and the positive results your support has made to the district. It is very exciting to talk about this subject because it is critically important to the district, and I'm really glad that we have so many great team members here that are going to be presenting throughout the course of the morning. So, as Dr. Brewer indicated, Charity Corneliuson will be talking about coordinator. She's our coordinator for physical education. She'll be speaking to that subject matter. Melissa Connor, our executive director for K-12 academics, will be speaking about career and technical education. Reagan Hughes, media-related and instructional services. Brooke Hutto will be presenting for visual and performing arts. And Mr. Mark Ingram and Dennis McFadden will be presenting on K-12 academics and safe schools, respectively. Okay. So let's jump into it a little bit here. Just as a reminder, our 1 mil ad valorem property tax was approved by voters November 8th, 2022, and became effective July 1st of 2023, running through June 30th of 2027. These funds can be used for specific purposes like reading, PE, art, music, library and media, and vocational programs. They also help to meet class size requirements, certain certified teachers, to retain certified teachers, paraprofessionals, and support our school safety initiatives. This voter-approved funding shows just how committed our community is to quality education, safety, and enriching our learning environments. From the time the referendum funds began, including in this year's budget, we expect to collect about $262 million in total. Our projected expenditures are about $252 million as indicated in the table in front of you. Okay, so the next slide here we're going to talk about is a financial overview where we're walking through 14% of our total revenues that we've received to date, and expenditures are tracking closely at 38%. This reflects solid and responsible management, keeping funds aligned with our planned priorities. Slide 4, we look at the current year budget, and for the current year, we've budgeted $42 million in total expenditures, and these dollars are distributed across all program areas you'll see on the next few slides, supporting our teachers, our students, and the essential programs that make a difference every day. Now, in the table before you, you'll notice that we have our kindergarten professional programs, paraprofessionals there at $5.7 million, a little over $10 million for physical education, vocational programs at almost $2.5 million, and media and library at about $4.5 million, and art at around $5.3 million, music at $5.8 million, and last but not least, the last two, professional development at close to $900,000, and school safety at a little over $7 million. So next, we'll get into a historical overview. This slide shows actual expenditures by program from 2021 through the first quarter of 25-26. It's helpful to see how the funding has been used over time, providing stability, consistency, and sustained support for critical instructional areas. I would like to point out, if you look at the class size reduction over time, that is where the lion's share of these revenues have been allocated over time. At $55 million, almost double that of the next closest area, which is physical education, which I think indicates the priority there in terms of making sure that instruction and our students are receiving the lion's share of the benefit since the referendum was renewed going back almost 10 years, but in looking at this data, going back from 2020 to 2021. The next slide, we're going to talk about fund balance. So at the end of 24-25 school year, we had an ending fund balance of $13.3 million, which rolled into the 25-26 year. For this year, we've budgeted the $41 million, as I've indicated, in revenue and expenditures at $42 million, leaving a fund balance projected at $12 million at the end of 25-26. For this year, we've budgeted the $41 million and $42 million in expenditures, and that $12 million we expect to carry forward so that we can continue and remain, have our programs maintain continuity moving forward. Just as a reminder, these funds are restricted and can only be used for the purposes approved by the voters. Now let's take a closer look at the general fund programs, and then we'll hear separately what I like to call the kind of miniature version of the district's referendum programs for charter schools, and we'll jump into that. Okay, so the next slide, we're going to get into, the next section really will be speaking about our kindergarten paraprofessionals, which is critical to our ability to make sure that our some of our youngest students are really benefiting from these dollars. The total budget at $5.7 million, and we've spent about 2.6. These funds support 161 paraprofessionals, which is a lot of staff, which is certainly needed, like I said, for our kindergarten students. Our paraprofessionals are an allowable expense under the referendum because they directly support student learning and classroom instruction, both which align with their educational purposes outlined in the referendum. The referendum dollars can be used to fund staffing positions and enhance instructional support, improve student outcomes, and maintain manageable class sizes. Paraprofessionals play a vital role in these areas, and by assisting teachers with instruction and providing individual or small group support, helping meet the diverse learning needs of all of our students. With that, I'm going to turn it over to Ms. Charity Corneliuson, and she's going to walk us through how these funds are supporting physical education this year.
Good morning. It's usually afternoon when we do this. I had to wrap my head around that this morning. Thank you, though, very much for taking the time to allow us to share all the amazing things that are going on in physical education. It's not often that we get to share out the return on the community's investment. Because referendum dollars fully fund physical education, our students receive high-quality instruction that is intentional, inclusive, and impactful. Here you see MCPS students participating in the Stack Up event in November, where they helped set a Guinness World Record for the most people sport stacking at multiple locations. More than 784,000 participants worldwide, and our students were part of that achievement. While the world record is exciting, the real value is in what students gained through the experience. Sport stacking develops focus, perseverance, coordination, and sportsmanship. Students practice goal setting, learn from mistakes, and celebrate success together. These outcomes don't happen by chance. They are the result of certified physical education teachers who design lessons that engage every learner and build confidence and resilience. This is what referendum funding supports: educators who create meaningful learning experiences that help students succeed both in and beyond the classroom. This slide showcases the elementary soccer jamboree. I believe Ms. Campbell stopped in for that. That was exciting. Another example of how physical education builds lifelong skills. 14 Marion County elementary schools came together at the Rotary Sportsplex for an event focused on sportsmanship, teamwork, and fun. Physical education teachers served as both instructors and coaches, ensuring the environment emphasizes respect, effort, and positive behavior, not just competition. For many students, this was their first experience participating in an organized athletic event. Physical education provides a safe space to take risks, learn how to handle changes and challenges, and grow through both success and adversity. These experiences help students develop confidence, perseverance, and social skills that carry into the classroom and everyday life. Again, referendum funding makes this possible by supporting the professionals who plan, organize, and lead these high-quality opportunities for students. My last slide highlights the broader community impact of physical education. By the numbers, this event included 14 elementary schools, 30 physical education teachers and soccer coaches, 336 student athletes, 20 high school student volunteers, and more than 150 parents and spectators. We've seen higher parent attendance than ever before, which reinforces how physical education connects schools, family, and the community. I also want to recognize our volunteers from Vanguard High School's Teacher Academy. Their support was essential to the success of this event. You'll see them again at our March 6th track meet. They served as outstanding role models for our elementary students. Seeing older students lead, encourage, and give back reinforces leadership, responsibility, and the value of service. This event reflects the ripple effect of investing in physical education teachers. When we fund educators, we create opportunities that build resilient students, foster sportsmanship, engage families, and inspire future leaders. This is the return on the investment of referendum funding, and it's one we're proud to share. Thank you.
Thank you, Charity. Okay, so with that, let's go into the numbers here a little bit. So for physical education, this year's budget, like I said earlier, is a little more than $10 million with $3.9 million spent to date, or about 40% through December. These funds cover salaries, benefits for 106 PE teachers and 24 PE techs. This also covers capital outlay for equipment, materials, and supplies, which is critical in order for our physical education teachers to do what they need to do and have the equipment to provide that level of programming for our students. The next area we're going to get into is going to be vocational programs, and we're going to have Ms. Melissa Connor come up and give us some updates. Thank you.
Thank you. Good morning. So we are very fortunate that we offer 35 career and technical education pathways to students, encompassing 14 career clusters ranging from health science to engineering. We have over 15,000 students enrolled in these programs across our district. The referendum helps us provide the teacher unit for some of these programs and keep equipment and facilities up to date across all of the programs. Shown here are a few of our recent student events. The top picture shows Westport engineering students on a tour of E1 in celebration of Manufacturing Day. We're grateful for the support of the Mid-Florida Regional Manufacturing Association, which helps us coordinate tours of E1, custom windows, and Cardinal Glass to give students a look at what is happening locally in the field of manufacturing. Again, the referendum helps us keep industry-level equipment in our programs so we can prepare students for jobs in these fields. Career and technical student organizations are tied to specific CTE programs. A few common ones you may be familiar with are FFA, Future Farmers of America, FBLA, Future Business Leaders of America. We recently hosted 160 students at 2 locations in Marion County for the sub-district FFA event. These are all leadership-based competitions, such as demonstrating abilities in parliamentary procedure, etc. The winners from this event will compete at the FFA district competition this month. We also hosted the regional HOSA competition for the middle school students. HOSA, or Future Health Professionals, is a student organization that health science students participate in. We had 170 students at this competition at CF, and the winners will go on to compete at the state competition this spring. Throughout the spring semester, we have many more coming. Now I'd like to share some recent business and industry connections we've made through our CTE programs. This is just a highlight of the many activities that took place in Q2. In November, through a partnership with CareerSource, we hosted our annual Youth Career Expo. This event takes place at Circle Square Cultural Center and allows 8th grade students to interact with business and industry members and explore their high school magnet options. I'm excited to share that this year, 425 students attended the event. We also highlighted Vanguard High in the fall as the site for CTE and Magnet Showcase. At the event, we invite community business members in to see the amazing things happening in our schools. This year, we highlighted the horticulture, vet assisting, future educators, and digital video programs at Vanguard High. During the event, community members followed a student-led tour to see some of the hands-on learning our students are participating in daily. Finally, I'm excited to share that all of our CTE programs have local college articulation agreements. This means that students who complete a program can potentially earn free college credit in that pathway. During Q2, we shared this opportunity with 351 of our high school CTE classes. The referendum funds help us provide these experiences and opportunities for students, and we look forward to continuing to make these connections as the school year progresses.
Thank you, Melissa. So let's delve into some of the numbers. I will say that I had an opportunity to visit our vocational programs and walk around the campus there with Mr. Smallridge, and I was extremely impressed, not only by the facilities, the quality of the programming that's going on there. And I think Mr. Smallridge and his team are doing an excellent job managing the dollars that we provide. And I wanted to mention that because I was thoroughly impressed. So let's go into the numbers here. So for vocational programs, this year's vocational budget is about $2.4 million, funding about 16 vocational teachers. And so far, we've spent about $33 percent of the budget. And again, covering salaries, benefits, some capital outlay, and purchase services. Purchase services include our contracted work to expand programs like our new avionics program, which I had an opportunity to look at a really large airplane, and there's a helicopter and all kind of cool stuff there at a new high school, and really, really impressed. And I think we're kind of spot on where we need to be for most of the programs that we operate with these funds. With that, we'll jump into the next section, and I'm going to ask Ms. Bregan Hughes to come up and talk about what's happening in our library and media programs.
Good morning. Media specialists on each of our campuses are busy at work preparing for the upcoming Celebrate Literacy Week. This year, the state is celebrating 250 chapters of America. Celebrate Literacy Week is designed to raise awareness about the importance of reading and to inspire Florida students and families to make reading part of their daily routines. With the support of the staff across each campus, media specialists will support and participate in different reading challenges and activities throughout the week. Some of the ideas that have been shared with me in preparation for this great event include Celebrate Stories Across America, Dress for a Decade, Celebrate Your Chapter in America's Story, Guest readers highlighting American history, and these are just a few of the great ideas. I encourage you to visit a campus during Celebrate Literacy Week, which is next week, January 26th through the 30th, to see the great things our media specialists are doing. Along with supporting statewide initiatives, our media specialists also plan and host great events. Pictured here, Mr. and Mrs. Osley read books during a literacy event that took place at Whiting Oaks Elementary. In the other photo, you can see the media specialist has created a book display asking students to make a connection between the titles, which happen to be 6-7. Creates great community and conversation on our campuses. All of our media specialists are hard at work supporting learning in many ways on each campus. Our community of students on each of our campuses continues to grow, which is a blessing, but it can also create challenges for our media specialists to keep current and up-to-date books and resources available to our students. With a collection of over 700,000 books district-wide, our media specialists will often rely on each other to request and share collections from school to school through interlibrary loans. This process has helped provide books of interest in the hands of all of our students. Each of our schools continues to boost circulation month over month to continue to build that love for literacy that we all know is so valuable for our students. Finally, I would like to recognize two of our media specialists from an elementary school as well as a high school. Shelley Kerr started her career as an educator in 1999 in Cleveland, Ohio. In 2004, Mrs. Kerr moved to Florida where she taught in Lee County for 10 years. And finally, in 2014, Ms. Kerr joined MCPS, where she taught at North Marion High and Lake Weir High, before settling into her role as the media specialist at Wyomina Park Elementary, where she has been for the past 10 years. Throughout her time at Wyomina, Ms. Kerr has worked tirelessly to put quality literature into the hands of her students and families at Wyomina. Recently, Wyomina transitioned from a traditional elementary school to provide a year-round program to better suit the needs of the students and families that attend Wyomina. Decreasing the number of weeks in the summer has helped to prevent a loss of learning and allows the teachers and staff at Wyomina to provide the year-round access to high-quality teaching and learning. Mrs. Kerr looks forward to many more years of designing literacy programming to grow her students into lifelong readers and learners. Over the past 12 years, Ms. Stover has taken it on, I apologize, let me back up. Stephanie Stover joined MCPS in January of 2014, transitioning from law librarian to high school media specialist at North Marion High, under the administrative leadership of Mr. Whitehouse and Dr. Brewer. Over the last 12 years, Ms. Stover has taken on additional responsibilities within the school, including serving as the school webmaster, after-school tutoring coordinator, title liaison, academic team, book club sponsor, new teacher academy contributor, and graduation coordinator. Helping in different roles has allowed Ms. Stover better understand the student and staff needs with developing a meaningful and useful media center. Currently, Ms. Stover is working on genrifying the fiction collection to help support reluctant readers, boost reader book selection independence, and save students time with the ability to locate a desired genre faster. North Marion High's Media Center provides a balance of collegiate atmosphere and fun high school environment. It hosts a morning coffee shop engaging students in conversation and community. North Marion High also offers a study lounge, research resources, and computer access for all students. Ms. Stover's goal is to make the Media Center a place that fits the needs of all students, staff, and community. Thank you.
Thank you, Bregan. So with that, we're going to jump into the next slide here, which again goes into some of the numbers. And I'm really glad to hear Bregan's presentation on some of the staff that's joined us over the years to make sure that our media centers have the right support that they need, and particularly focusing on reading. As we know, reading is critical to all of our students. And when we look at these numbers and we talk about this budget of $4.4 million, certainly the 1.7 that we've spent to date is right on target at about 39%. And overall in the district, this helps to fund 49 media specialists, which is a really large number, and these folks are doing excellent work. These referendum dollars are crucial for our media centers. And these media centers, as she indicated, they're hubs for learning, creativity, and research. And so I'm glad to report that this money is being well spent. With that, we're going to jump into the next area, and I'm going to ask Ms. Charity Corneliuson to come back up and talk about visual arts and our music programs.
It was Charity last week. You get me this week. Good morning. I am always thrilled to share what we are doing in the visual and performing arts. This past quarter, we had our 58th annual Ocala Arts Festival, sponsored by Fine Arts for Ocala. It was held October 25th and 26th at Citizen Circle in downtown Ocala. Approximately 1,800 pieces of student artwork was on display for the weekend in grades K to 12. These pieces were judged, and 12 awards of merit were given for elementary, first through fifth place for middle and high school, and an overall best in show given for middle and high school students. We had 7 of our elementary students placed for an award of merit. In middle school, our students placed in the 4th, 3rd, 2nd places, and Roshni Vishnangara from Bellevue took middle school best in show. In high school, our students took 5th, 3rd, 2nd, 1st place, and Corey Taylor from Westport was our high school best in show winner. These students were all recognized at the FAFO Awards reception on November 18th at the Appleton Museum. This quarter, we also held our first annual Superintendent Choice Award. On October 24th, we held judging for this new award in conjunction with the 58th Annual Ocala Arts Festival. One piece of student artwork from each participating K-12 MCPS art program was selected by our esteemed panel of judges, which included Dr. Brewer, Mr. Whitehouse, Mr. Rembert, Ms. Kynard, and Mr. Frazier. All of these selected students were recognized at the November 11th school board meeting. The final image that's displayed is by Camilla Kobach-Arbenois. She is an 8th grade student at Bellevue Middle School, and she was selected by the art teachers of Marion County to represent Marion County in this year's Art in the Capitol competition. Authorized by Florida statutes, Art in the Capitol is a voluntary statewide visual arts competition that allows each school district to annually hold an art competition for all students in grades 6 to 8 that attend public schools, charter schools, private schools, and home education students in Florida. The artwork was judged by a selection committee consisting of art teachers whose students did not submit work for the competition, and Camilla's piece received 81% of the votes. Her piece is currently hanging in the state capitol for the duration of the 2026 legislative session. We actually just got an email from the state. They took a picture of it hanging currently, so we're excited to see that, and hopefully we'll get to see it when we visit on February 11th for Marion at the Capitol.
We'll be there next week.
Ooh, even better. So you guys will get to see it in person. All right, slide number 2, we have performing arts. So in the performing arts, we had 9 of our schools from elementary to high school participate in the Ocala Arts Festival, showcasing their talents throughout the weekend at Citizen Circle. For those of you that have attended the Fine Arts for Ocala event, we know that this is one of the largest community events in Marion County every year. We shut down the entire downtown area and we bring in thousands of community members and from Marion County and beyond. Our artists come in from all over the nation and people will follow from all over the nation as well. So this is an incredible opportunity for our students to consistently perform and showcase their artwork for the broader Ocala community. Pictured on the left are 5 of our students from Dr. N.H. Jones who were selected from over 1,000 auditions to participate in the elementary all-state Orff Ensemble. Overall, 20 of our K-12 students from Bellevue Middle School, Howard Middle School, Bellevue High School, Forest High School, and Westport High School represented MCPS this past weekend at Florida All-State Ensembles in Tampa. That's where I was last week. So we're at our FMEA State Conference. It is one of the largest state conferences for music educators in the entire nation. And so we had an incredible opportunity to have those students come out, work with esteemed clinicians from all over the country, and have an opportunity to communicate and collaborate with other students from across Florida as well. In December, 14 of our middle and high school band programs performed at the Ocala Christmas Parade, again, one of our largest community events. Pictured are some of our band and color guard directors. So we have Brittany Schofield, who's at Howard Middle School, Nick Reardon from Liberty Middle School, Kara Brady is the color guard instructor for Forest High School, and David Jones is their band director. They work incredibly diligently to prepare their students for this 2.7-mile parade every year. And those of you that, get to ride on the floats, you see right beforehand how they're preparing ahead of time. And, they get a chance to just play their hearts out as they walk across that parade route. And then finally this quarter, our theater students across the county prepared to present a variety of events, including musicals, costume and makeup design, and their acting talents at the Junior Student Thespians for middle school and District Thespians for high school competitions. Horizon Academy received 3 superior and 13 excellent medals for their events at Junior Thespians. Bellevue High School received 1 superior, 9 excellent, and 1 good rating. Vanguard High School received 4 superior and 4 excellent ratings, and Westport High School received 18 superior and 18 excellent ratings. This includes top honors for 3 of their entries in duet acting, costume design, and makeup design, and their main stage play, Radium Girls, was only one of 10 schools in the state that were asked to showcase their performance at the state thespian competition, which will happen in Tampa in March. We are continuously thankful for the referendum dollars that allow our students and teachers to have the opportunity to pursue their passions in the arts and to develop all of the incredible skills that come along with being in the visual and performing arts. Thank you.
Thank you, Charity. And with that, we'll jump into the numbers here. And so what you have before you in slide 24 is some stacked charts and tables. We're going to go through these numbers. So for visual arts, the budget is $5.2 million. We've spent about $2 million so far, which is right where we need to be. And again, you'll see the trend here. Most of the money, and I'll go through this in a little bit more detail later on in the presentation, is spent on salaries and benefits for staff. And for visual arts, that's 55 art teachers, 12 paraprofessionals, and 1/2 of a coordinator position, which they are doing excellent work, and I'm always glad to hear that students can, play instruments and walk, and we get that 2-for-1 special where they get the physical education and the music education with these funds. So I love to hear that. With that, we're going to jump into music. And so, for our music programming on slide 25, again, our budget is $5.7 million with $2.2 million spent to date. These funds support 56 music teachers, 12 paraprofessionals, and 1/2 of a coordinator position. And these funds help to replace instruments, which are extremely expensive, as many of you know, refresh supplies, and sustain creative programs that enrich learning and inspire lifelong appreciation of the arts. With that, I'm going to ask Mr. Mark Ingram to come up, and he's going to talk about professional leadership and learning.
Thank you. Good morning. I'm going to talk about the great things we use referendum funds for with our new teacher induction and mentoring program through professional leadership and learning. This slide shows the updated numbers for novice and early teachers since October. Overall, we've gained 19 teachers into the induction and mentoring program, which is funded through referendum funds. First-year teachers all receive a one-on-one mentor, while the site-based lead for each school supports all early career or second-year teachers. There are stipends for the site-based leads for each mentors, and all teachers attend new Teacher Academy trainings and mentor professional learning opportunities. They all receive a stipend. For the new Teacher Academy, we do separate first-year and second-year early career teachers so that we're able to cover topics differently with different depth for those experienced teachers. In September, our topic was the classroom environment, really setting up and formatting your classroom, having those procedures and routines. In November, we talked lesson plan to action plan. I got to help plan with that. That's really important, that gap between the planning of the lesson and the delivery of it, and how you can make changes and modify for your students and how they're receiving the lesson. In January, we talked about engagement, which we could talk about all the time. It's been a district-wide focus across the board as well. And then in March and April, we run makeup sessions for teachers who may have missed an earlier session or who have been hired since the beginning of the year. And with this, we also offer professional learning for our site-based leads and for our mentors. In August, we were able to do program implementation and responsibilities for the program. October, we did coaching conversations as pictured. It's a great training. It really is talking about how you provide effective feedback and you help people on their path to sort of greatness, to becoming really good teachers. And then in February, we kind of continue that trend with goal setting and providing feedback. Just how do we keep everybody in that growth mindset and being able to improve their craft and really support our students do all the great things we've talked about today. Thank you.
Thank you, Mark. So for professional leadership and learning, let's look at some of the numbers here. At a $624,000 budget with $39,000 spent so far, this is a little less than we would expect at this point in the year, but we certainly intend that this will continue to tick up as we have about hit the halfway mark here for the school year. And these funds that we are spending invest directly in our educators, again, helping to provide training, mentorship, and collaboration opportunities. This ongoing investment, strengthens our teaching practices, supports innovation, and ensures that staff have the leadership skills and tools that they need every day to help our students succeed. The next area we're going to get into is school safety, and Mr. Dennis McSpadden will come up, and he's going to give us some words.
Good morning again. The Safe Schools Department continues to focus on prevention, preparedness, and rapid response while maintaining compliance with state-mandated school safety requirements. Referendum funds approved by the voters are used to support security personnel, safety technology, and infrastructure improvements across Marion County Public Schools. The largest share of this quarter's referendum spending supported the School Resource Officer Program, which continues to be the foundation of our campus security strategy. This quarter, payments included $17,957 to Bellevue Police Department, over $42,000 to the Ocala Police Department, and $768,000 to the Marion County Sheriff's Office for a total of $828,890. These funds ensure consistent daily law enforcement presence on school campuses, allowing SROs to build relationships with students, respond quickly to emergencies, participate in threat assessments, and provide safety education. Without referendum funding, the district would face major challenges to sustain this level of staffing or meet state safety requirements. Additional expenditures included required pre-employment costs for a new Safe Schools officer with the Safe Schools Department. Newly hired officers must go through drug screening and physical examinations prior to employment. These costs are part of a standard onboarding procedures and ensure compliance with health and safety requirements prior to assignment to school campuses. The Safe Schools Department also hired a crisis response coordinator in September of last year to handle emergency management for the district. This position requires the employee to swiftly respond to locations during emergency situations. Therefore, a dedicated vehicle is required, a purchase order was submitted, and that vehicle will be delivered hopefully sometime in February. The district also continued to use the Raptor visitor and volunteer management system to support consistent visitor screening and control access across school campuses. Investments were also made to maintain and improve on the communications infrastructure for the 800 megahertz mobile radios that were placed in all school buses and Safe Schools vehicles in December of 2023. A total of $48,136 was spent for a firmware upgrade to the district's radio system, ensuring reliable and secure communication between school buses, Safe Schools staff, and public safety partners. This upgrade improved system performance and long-term reliability, supporting both routine operations and emergency response. The district would also like to recognize the contributions of Alfonso Gordon, radio station systems manager for public safety communications, whose leadership was instrumental in advancing radio system upgrades that support direct communication to local public safety access points. Although Al passed away in August of 2023, his work significantly strengthened system reliability and coverage across the district. The improvements implemented under his recommendations continue to support daily operations and emergency communication throughout Marion County Public Schools. As a result of these investments, the district has maintained consistent safety measures, improved communications reliability, and strengthened oversight of campus access. The Oversight Committee continues to provide essential review and accountability of Safe Schools expenditures. Rising costs related to school resource officers, contracts, and safety infrastructure remain an area of ongoing monitoring as the district continues to prioritize student and staff safety through reliable or responsible use of referendum funds. And as we follow a lot of the House proposed bills, and as you all know, there's always something new on the horizon that they require us to have. So we are following some bills now that may require some additional safety required equipment, and in doing so, we oftentimes have to shift and kind of divert our intended plans to meet those state requirements. So we are following any House bills that would have caused us to make any changes to our safety and security plans. Thank you.
Thank you, Dennis. I'm really pleased to hear that we can get a lot of really good work done with these dollars. And to speak about school safety, the budget, get the next slide, $6.7 million with $1.9 million spent so far. And as Dennis indicated, these dollars are used to ensure that our schools remain safe, which is critical for students to be able to feel like they can come to school and learn. And they also provide welcoming environments. These dollars really help our students thrive every day. And we feel like for where we are right now, things are looking right where they need to be, including some of those additional enhancements and modifications that we've done to our facilities in order to ensure that students are safe. Okay, so with that, we should have a section on our charter schools. You should have that in your packets. And I think this is going through the next section, so I'm going to talk through that. As I mentioned earlier, the charter schools operate similar to how we operate, in the sense that the areas that the charter schools are using their portion of funds that we're legally required to pass through to them track the same way, because that is a requirement that they cannot spend the dollars and any other way, they have to spend it in the same way that we do, just on a much smaller scale. So with that, I'll get into a little bit of what that looks like. And so for for class size reduction, physical education, vocational programs, library and media, art, music, and professional development and school safety, the total budget for the charter schools is $897,192, rounding up to $900,000. The lion's share of that is being spent on school safety at $370,000, $375,06. Professional development at $234,776. Music at $80,000. Art at $53,000. And physical education at $158,000. With that, I do want to remind the board that the charter schools have their own financial statements, and we do not control how they allocate the funds in terms of how much money goes into what bucket. We do report on what they provide to us. And I know that question had come up in the past, so I want to make sure that that's clear.
And Mr. Rios-Walsh.
Yes, ma'am.
If you'd like, board, I was wondering if you'd like to pause here to ask any questions regarding the referendum as it has existed, because the next part of the presentation is going to kind of get into what life could look like without the referendum, and potentially what we could do to change language or not for our request for the ballot. So, board, if I know I just have one or two quick questions about the historical referendum spending, so if it's okay, I'd like to pause here just so we can
Yes.
kind of get those taken care of before we go into
Sure.
the next part. Do you want me to get started, board? Okay. My only question is, seeing as the existing referendum fund will go through the 26-27 school year, right? I would like, and we've talked about this before, but board, I would like to see if there's a majority of us who would agree. I would like to see a new job description created for kindergarten paras that allows for flexibility in usage of that para throughout the school year. I know that's something we've talked about before. My hope would be that that job description is completed prior to at the end of the school year, so that individuals who are signing up for the kindergarten para job next year understand what that job description looks like. We've had many a discourse up here previously about the fact that kindergarten paras are vitally important in classrooms in August. And then depending on the classroom, depending on the school, depending on the principal's usage of them, there are times in which principals and other staff members could benefit from the instructional paraprofessional that is a kindergarten para outside of the kindergarten classroom to support students. And I would like principals to have the discretion to do that. We can all argue back and forth about whether other duties as assigned gives that flexibility. I personally would love to see a kindergarten para job description, which that is very clear about what the other duties could be on a school campus if the principal chose to use them in that fashion. So I open it up to the board to agree or disagree with me on that, because I would like to see, regardless of what the referendum looks like after next school year, we do have referendum next year.
Dr. Brewer has a comment.
Yeah.
I just want to clarify that currently, we call them a kindergarten paraprofessional, but they do have the instructional paraprofessional job description.
Correct. We don't have a kindergarten. So what I'm asking is for us to have a kindergarten para job description that is unique to what kindergarten paras do in August through December, and then gives flexibility for them to do other things if the principal so chose, starting in January. Because we're hoping that kindergartners, some of the life skills that paras are so helpful with in August have been accomplished by December. So, board, does anyone have thoughts on that? Dr. Campbell?
I agree with the thought process. I am curious, as we move into site-based budgeting, how much this board has previously dictated as to the requirement of the one-to-one kindergarten para, how much we will continue to have a voice in that. And so that's where my question would arise. In the data we received from Mr. Whitehouse, specifically about our fast K2 percentages, we have some of our elementary schools that in their PM1 data for kindergarten students are more than 30% already there. And so, and I'm not saying that that's a great number, because we want everybody to be, but I mean, if you're enrolling in kindergarten and you're already so much farther ahead, just based on your school climate, and you can see that, I mean, it's right here. That was one of the things that was eye-opening to me about this, to see the schools that start at 4% versus a school that starts at 30%. And that, the school that starts at 30% and for kindergarten students is not a magnet program. So I'm curious, I appreciate the sentiment, always in favor of job descriptions. You guys know that. I think it really does paint a clear picture for anyone what they're going to be held accountable to. However, I am curious, and that's a question that I'll continue to have for Dr. Brewer. As we move into site-based budgeting, we're not going to be dictating ratios anymore, to my knowledge, but maybe I'm mistaken in that. I know this board's been very vocal about the interest in kindergarten paras being one-to-one. I just don't know that it will be our responsibility any longer to have that.
Well, and I guess that's a question I would love to know the answer to too. When we go into site-based budgeting, seeing as this is dictated by the referendum, can a principal choose not to have kindergarten paras on site-based budgeting? Mr. Whitehouse? Or
It's going to be the same as art, music, PE. The funds, we have those funds, and of course the district, they're under the district's recommendation, but those would not be positions that a principal would eliminate. Same thing with that, we're going to recommend certain administrative type positions. They would not be able to remove those particular positions.
Okay, I didn't think so. So I think they're kind of, if the referendum's paying for them, they're essentially safeguarded. So.
Understood. I mean, I get that, the money's there, but I mean, the money could be spent in other ways. I appreciate it. I understand we've dictated that that's what they're receiving, but I think that the data is starting to show that there certainly are programs that it's not required that we dictate that to them. So I would be open to seeing some flexibility for principals in that regard if the need doesn't present itself. A designated job description for kindergarten para, to me, says that we will always and forever have that job. And I believe that it's possible that our community will start hearing us loud and clear that we need students to come to school kindergarten ready, and the need for them to be a full-time 180-day position will not be as needed as it currently potentially is in some locations. I still believe it's a seasonal position.
I agree, but that's the premise of my statement, because I agree with you. I agree with you that by the time we get to January, there are many places where it's not as needed as it was in August. So, and if I'm off in my approach, I can totally own that. What I'm looking to accomplish is flexibility for site-based leaders to use those instructional paraprofessionals for other instructional supports. For instance, potentially at a school that is higher with kindergarten coming in January, instead of those paraprofessionals being in the kindergarten classroom all day, they can go and do small group intervention in 3 through 5, because we also acknowledge that there's a need there. And so if I have 6 kindergarten units and I have 6 instructional pairs on my site, having flexibility to use them to support other students, if it is appropriate for my site, is what I'm looking to accomplish. And I know that other duties as assigned theoretically accomplishes that, but then what I'm asking is from a procedural level to ensure that with the union and everyone else, we're all on the same page about how we can use that resource to maximize what's best for students on our campuses. So that was essentially my question. I would agree with Dr. Campbell to a sense, though, that if the referendum language says reading as one of the things it can be used for, then if a principal wanted to go to 2 kindergarten units to 1 para, so go back to that, could they not use the referendum money to buy a CAS? Yeah, anyone?
Go ahead. We can, but also I just want to make sure we have one point, and I just want to say one thing. Because of the flexibility we have with the instructional paraprofessional, a principal could right now use what we're calling a kindergarten para in a 2nd grade class or a 3rd grade class. So, but we can remind staff of that for that clarity. Mr. Whitehouse?
Yeah, so 2 points. So one, yes, already our principals are working with their kindergarten teachers to utilize kindergarten paras for small group instruction elsewhere, so those are conversations they're having right now. But certainly we can have conversations about the JD with HR. But in terms of your question about could they utilize it for something else, so on the site-based budgeting, we mark the referendum funded positions for them, that these are positions we're providing for you. So if they wanted to exchange something out, yes, we could have a conversation. However, the impact of the budget of a CAS is double that of a kindergarten paraprofessional. So if every school wanted to swap out their kindergarten paraprofessionals for an instructional position, you're doubling the cost that we would be adding to the referendum budget.
Well, their math would have to math, right?
Correct.
So
Yes,
you're
correct.
being allocated, let's call it $100 for these kindergarten paras.
Yep.
So the math would have to math. They'd have to figure that out. I mean, that's the beauty of site-based budgeting. But I don't disagree that if that principal wants to make that decision, I mean, I think I'm in line with Dr. Campbell that if that principal looks at her campus or his campus and sees that, you know, they can manage with 3 kindergarten pairs instead of 6, well, 3 kindergarten pairs certainly equals an instructional coach.
Yeah, so it's part of the reason why we're not bringing ratios back to the board, which we would be doing next month, is because we're not going to dictate ratios with site-based budgeting. We have a few exceptions. You have to have a principal, you have to have a secretary, you have to have at least one guidance counselor on campus. So we have a few requirements within site-based budgeting, but beyond that, we do allow a lot of flexibility. So certainly those are conversations that we could have with each principal, but the math would have to math, absolutely.
I mean, I think at least if they're aware of the ability to unit exchange like they can for other things.
Right.
So, I mean, as long as they know that they're able to unit exchange for referendum allocated positions, obviously they can't, you know, exchange PE for something else if PE is a requirement. But if they have 2 PE, if they're allocated 2 PE, or I don't know, however it would work, I would just love to see some flexibility. Is that what you're saying, Dr. Campbell?
Yes, it is, and it actually lends itself to yet another question in my mind, and I'm sorry we're going down a rabbit trail that is not intended for the purpose of the topic today. But we had this year kindergarten units allocated that we then had to reduce significantly by a dozen or more, a couple of dozen probably. So what did that look like from the referendum perspective? Because I'm assuming when we started, we had those kindergarten paras also allocated referendum-wise. Was it just money credited back to the referendum this year? I hadn't even thought of that conversation until just now.
Yeah, so what we did with kindergarten pairs, we actually had a few sites where we've added kindergarten units over time, and so we have shifted those kindergarten pairs because the positions were all full. And so if it was an empty kindergarten pair position, then we could credit back to referendum, but for the most part, they were all filled positions, so we allowed schools where possible to keep that additional position because it was funded for the referendum, and they were able to utilize them to support the increased ratio that we had put on classrooms. Since now we're putting 20 kids in a classroom instead of 18, those extra bodies allowed them to be able to provide, again, that increased support in kindergarten.
Thank you. Okay, board, any further comments? I know we haven't heard from Ms. Thur or Ms. Conrad regarding the first part of the presentation.
I have just really just a couple of questions, and really also just a couple of comments. I did have a question about the balance, Mr. Rios-Welsh. The fund balance, is that statute driven, or we have a number that we're comfortable with?
So I'm going to get into a little bit more of that in the
Okay.
next portion of the presentation.
Okay, that's great. I'll wait to get the answer for that.
Yeah, I mean, as far as the fund balance goes, you know, specifically for $13 million or so that we see, that's where we feel very comfortable with that. So that's certainly not an issue. That's where we're projecting, and we feel like that puts us in a good position going into next year for this particular aspect.
Thank you very much. I did want to, a question I had about the circulation in the media center. And so I'm super excited for the elementary schools, middle schools, and high schools that we highlighted for what their circulation is. But if you don't mind, I'd like a list of what the circulation is at each school. I'm just interested if that coordinates with their success as we're looking at their assessment data right now. If the circulation of reading and reading in the library, yes, and Melissa's saying, yes, we have that data. I would like to see if there's a correlation there. You know, we want our students to be reading all the time. I want to see what the numbers are in each media center and what their reading scores are.
Yeah, we can certainly provide that information. Thank you.
Okay, thank you for that. On the next time we do this, can we add the charter school slide into the presentation so that we have that as part of?
Yes,
part of
ma'am,
our
certainly,
program?
and we can provide that to you guys after the meeting, so you have that as a reference. That's usually part of the regular ICROC presentation, but due to the length, we wanted to
Okay.
exclude it this time, just for time purposes, but thank you. Yeah, we can get that to you.
Yes, and I can appreciate that. And lastly, I just want to say, as we reviewed each of these areas that the referendum covers, I'm just so grateful to the community. Every piece that we've talked about plays an integral part in educating our young people. And so from kindergarten paras, who I'm extremely passionate about, to PE, art, music, to safe schools, all of those things are just so important to educating the young people of Marion County. And I think it benefits Marion County overall, because as future citizens of our community, they will be well-rounded. And so just, again, so thankful that Marion County supports public education. And that's all I have.
Absolutely.
Board Member Thur, did you have any comments?
Yes, I'll make them brief because I know we're trying to keep moving, but it's very rare that we get 100% approval on anything. And I will say that I have yet, knock on wood, to receive any complaint about increasing our vocational, career, and technical education offerings. It's what I continue to hear is the most important. That we do a great job and have done a great job for many years on the college prep track. But having a variety of ways to reach students so that when they leave us, they are on a path seems to continue to receive unanimous support. That being said, providing the level of quality and also the volume is expensive. You know, someone just mentioned, the helicopter and the airplane, and we do get things donated. But there's also a lot of materials and machines that we don't get donated that have to be paid for. So it's so easy to see the return on that investment. So my hat continues to be off to everyone involved in that. Just quickly on the conversation with kindergarten paras, in the trenches, I think the kindergarten paras have always been pulled to cover other needs, especially during the pandemic. If the kindergarten teacher happened to be out, because they were sick or on quarantine, that para became a teacher, as did so many others. So I would just draw a little caution. I love flexibility, I love choices, but until I see some real solid data that our readiness is through the roof, I would just continue to encourage us to be laser focused on that early childhood support. So I'll just leave that right there.
Board Member Conrad.
My thoughts align with Ms. Thrower's there. I too am all in support of flexibility. But I have a heart for our earliest learners. And so while we may have a few sites where our 5- and 6-year-olds can operate in a classroom with one teacher, I think the majority of our schools still lean heavily on their paras to run reading centers, to run math centers, to help getting kids back and forth to the clinic and go home, all of those things. And so while there may be a few schools that don't need that after December, I'm very hesitant about to have that discussion further, because Ms. Thrower is right. They are already pulled when it gets close to testing season. When somebody's sick, they're already using those paras. I don't want to say on a day-to-day basis, but they're getting pulled, and that teacher, that classroom loses that support for the day or for the week, whatever that looks like. And the instruction is not the same. And, we've been looking at the data for our earliest learners, and we know there are large gaps in our students that are coming into kindergarten. So I just I don't want to take the short route, because we're pulling from our kindergartners or our pre-Kers, in there to help the fourth and fifth graders. Well, it's helping right now, but in the long run, we're going to cut ourselves short. So I do have some concerns about that. I do want to make that literacy development in the kindergarten realm still a priority, because I think if we catch them early, that's our best chance for each student to be successful.
All right. Dr. Cable, did you have anything else you wanted to add on this first section? No?
Did we land on whether or not we want a kindergarten parent job description? I think that's what
No,
we're gonna
yeah,
do.
I think we said it's being accomplished in the regular JD, so that's fine. That's fine with me. I do think we are, not seeing as there are 4 of us here today, we have not landed on, a discussion on site-based budgeting and unfixing, that referendum expenditure. So I think that will have to be a further conversation for a later date. All right, so Mr. Rios-Welch, I'll give it back to you to keep going.
Thank you. And we appreciate the great questions and commentary. The administration fully understands how vitally important the referendum funding is and is very thankful to the voters of Marion County for supporting it over the years. With that, we're going to jump into a couple of questions. During the last iteration or renewal of the referendum, I went back through and looked at some videos and commentary, and so I tried to make sure I had some historical context in discussing some of these questions. And so the first question that we want to make clear with the board is that if you look at the budget, what are we able to absorb into our general fund budget or other budgets that we have that we're currently funding with referendum? And I think that's somewhat of a rhetorical question, but I think it is very important to point that out. And so the next slide is going to kind of, again, level set a little bit and walk us through what our total revenues are looking like at $41.2 million, which I mentioned earlier on in the presentation. And then if you look at that breakdown, which is really where I want to focus, is how much of these dollars in terms of the total makeup, 78% is going towards salary and benefits. And we talked about paraprofessionals, we talked about arts and media and physical education and all the lovely things that we're doing. This is a heavily dependent area on personal services. And so we just want to make sure that we emphasize that to the voters, that they are getting a very good value for the dollars that they are contributing to the referendum. The other portion, or 22% of that, as you can see in the schedule, at about $9.2 million, are for those other items. The equipment, the capital outlay, those items that we talked about earlier, which help to round us out. The other piece that I want to bring up is this question around, well, what if we did $500,000? And looking at some scenarios, really touching on if we were to take this away or the voters did not approve it, what would be the impact on the budget? And so you'll see there at the bottom of the schedule that the $500,000 there at $20.6 million, or about half of what we've seen in our current revenue projection for this year. And so that tracks according to what we would expect to see. And contextually, we understand that over time, property values and appreciation of property, which the school board does not control, has increased. And so we have seen an uptick in revenues from its onset, where it originally started, and then seen that increase over time, which really helps to support the narrative around the total amount of dollars that we would expect to receive over the last 5 years or so. And so that's really important to point that out. The next slide I'm going to walk you through is a schedule where we really want to try to focus in on our current or our original budget as approved by the board and the projected ending fund balance and what that would look like if we were to not have the available resources from referendum. And that's really important because I think it typifies how structurally intertwined the school board has now become dependent on referendum dollars in terms of historically restoring some of the austerity measures that were taken in previous years under previous boards, in which the board has inherited some of those decisions, obviously, which by no stretch of the imagination are easy decisions, but were decisions nonetheless. And the referendum has enabled the board to restore a lot of those programs and services that we've talked about today in order to really provide an enriching learning environment for our students beyond the basics of reading, math, and all of the core subjects, but those other areas as well that we've discussed. So if you look at the schedule, starting from the top, from the orange up, I'll just direct you to the bottom there, where we have the 6.74%, which is the 7% target for overall fund balance that we are projecting for this year. Now, I will go back and say that our beginning fund balance is typically driven year over year by our vacancy rate, not only for our teachers, but central staff, custodials, and all of our staff in aggregate have helped to provide that level of cushion, including the increase in property value that we've received, generally speaking. That being said, I will also mention, that we have several reserved areas for these funds, for fund balance, that we are, one, legally required, and two, that the board has put policies in place in order to ensure that we have a rainy day fund in order to make sure that we are solvent and that we can pay our bills. And that is critically important in terms of our financial condition ratio. With that, you'll see all of those areas listed out, including the $1 million for purchases for items that have not yet been allocated to our schools or departments. And then it goes through and we talk about the $7 million and committed that the board has requested that we put aside. We also have $2 million for FES and FTE audit adjustments, which is key. We just got the results not too long ago from the state related to an audit adjustment, and so we know that we need to set aside money for that. Last but certainly not least is the 3% requirement that the state requires that we keep on hand at the $15 million mark. And then lastly, the unassigned other, which again helps us to round out our fund balance and our reserve at that target of 7%. With that being said, our unassigned fund balance would be 4.64%, which is really just looking at the unassigned 3% and unassigned other. Now, I will also mention that the requirement from DOE is 3%, as you all very well know, and if it goes below 2%, we have to start making cuts. They require that we make cuts. If it's below 3 or between 2 and 3, we have to provide a plan for how we will address that. So I just wanted to remind the board of that. Our auditors have typically drawn a line in the sand of around 5% for a target fund balance. Our credit rating agencies usually recommend 10%, which is a very lofty goal, but is certainly appropriate. And as you can see from the projection for this year, we are certainly trying to make some ground there to ensure that we can get as close to that number as possible, notwithstanding some of the austerity measures that had to be taken last fiscal year in order to balance the budget. The bottom half of the schedule is really that first scenario where we look at that full mill. And effectively what this is doing is we are trying to articulate the impact of, if the referendum did not pass, what that does to fund balance. And as you can see from the schedule, the end result does not look good. We are talking about 1.6 overall fund balance in the negative because you are taking away almost $42 million in revenue, and we have expenses, embedded expenses now with these teachers, which total, I believe, 493 total positions that we are supporting. And so the point of the schedule is to really emphasize how critically important it is that we talk about the great work that we're doing, that we're being transparent, and that we are doing exactly what we promised the voters we would do with the funds that they have given us to steward. And they are having a tremendously positive impact on our student performance. And so taking that away would certainly be not a good thing, and it would put the school district in a position where we obviously would not want to be. With that, I'll pause just for any questions on this particular schedule, and then the next schedule is effectively the same setup, just at $500,000.
Board Member Thur.
Thank you. I appreciate being able to respond before it leaves my mind. And speaking as a taxpayer, as we all are sitting up here, and mentioning that the money is being used as intended is, obviously really important. And it just made me wonder, I know that we have our ICROC bylaws, and I remember in the past anyway, when Mike Gonzalez would get up and share, our ICROC chair, he was the chair for multiple years, share how the committee feels we're doing in terms of accountability and compliance. So I just pulled up, I think it was Board Member Campbell that helped update these a few years ago, the bylaws, and I'm looking at, number 10B, and that the ICROC meets 4 times a year and annually render a written report to the school board containing comments on the school board's compliance with the ballot language, and that this report should be kept on file in the board clerk's office, online with the school district's website, and made available to the public upon request. And I'm bringing this up in detail because as we move into what sounds like we're going to be asking our community again, to support this, I think it's integral to the ask, to make sure that, we're getting these updates and that they really reflect and match, all the areas of the referendum pieces. So that was my first thing. And then the second thing is that it's really helped us that home values have continued to increase. We had a pretty great spike. But from what I read, I think just yesterday, home values are starting to stabilize now, so I don't think that we can necessarily count on what we have been able to count on in that respect. And then the other thing is that I don't think anyone that lived here during that time really wants to go back to where we were during the Great Recession. We were in the tank, and not having art, music, and PE in any kind of productive way, I don't think anyone agrees is what's best for kids. So we did need to restore those programs in. But now I think we've moved into a phase of wanting to grow and enhance. I'll point back to vocational and career and technical education. I'd love to see the number of, and right now it's 35 of these pathways. How many pathways have we had before in previous years? Probably not nearly as many. I know we didn't have an equine pathway until I got on the board. And I'm proud of that. And we need to be very proud. And to your point of telling our story, it reminds me when we ran the $500,000, we invited the media, we invited community members in to see the need. And when we have these magnet showcases and things like that, now is definitely the time to put that pedal to the metal even more about getting the media invited and getting community members invited so that they can see, the return on investment. Because from this taxpayer's perspective, the return on investment has been tremendous and something to really be proud of as a community. I just continue to be so thankful to be part of that community that has supported this. That was a lot, sorry.
Thank you.
Dr. Campbell.
Thank you. So there are a couple of factors here that, for those who haven't been following along with this, understanding, I mean, notably, I was one who was questioning even before, what does it look like if we do a half mil? What does it look like? Because if our taxpayers just look at the chart that you did, the slide 2, and seeing that in 2016-17, we got 16 million, and then last year it's 41 million, we're projecting 41 million, people noticeably would say, my tax dollar, what are you doing with that extra $30 million over the course of the last 10 years, right? And obviously you had a wonderful presentation. We have great ICROC that they are ensuring that we're spending the dollars correctly, all of that. But taxes are taxes and money is money, and every dollar that's coming out of somebody's pocket, they're gonna feel it. I think there's a couple of other factors that, first of all, a couple of years ago, it was this board that decided that we would fully fund art, music, PE out of the referendum, because in 2016, when that board determined to go out for that ballot initiative, they had been cut in half. And so we were using the language that we're restoring those, and we used that language for 6 years or so, that we've restored those, and it was just funding half of those salaries for each of those different levels. What's happened since then, I think a couple of things for historical perspective for the community to understand. First of all, we all know what happened with Marjorie Stoneman Douglas and how school safety has become heightened. Like, we have an item on our agenda coming up next week that we will be voting on potentially to have AI weapons detection. It's in the agenda. You can go look at it and check it out yourself. But so the things that we've had to do over the course of the last 5 to 6 years when it comes to school safety has been significantly increased compared to what we ever did in 2016, whenever this went out. The other thing that I think people don't focus on enough is in 2020, our governor dictated that we all raise our teacher salaries. So it wasn't the same. I'm actively trying to get board docs to find me that collective bargaining agreement from back in like 17, 18. I'm still trying to find it. I want to know what that salary schedule said, what our beginning teacher salary was at that time compared to what it is today. Because while the governor is dictating that the beginning teacher salary is $47,500, we as Marion County have said our beginning teacher salary is $50,000 because we want to make sure that's competitive, that we can hire great, highly qualified educators to come in. But what it used to be was less than $40,000, and I don't know exactly how much less than $40,000, but just that increase alone, we're talking $10,000 for a teacher, and we're funding however many, 200 plus 300. Some of these are significant numbers are teachers. So 50 art teachers, 50 music teachers, 50 media specialists, all of that, PE teachers. So we're talking several hundred. And those are things that have been put on us, grateful for, because our educators need to be receiving that kind of pay. They need to have a livable wage, and I'm not going to say that is a livable wage, but I think that's something that, as we continue on this narrative, for people to really understand the historical perspective. Additionally, in 2020, whenever a little bit before that, where our state voted in the $15 minimum wage, that some people still aren't even aware was voted in, and it was in a progression that the businesses had the opportunity to go year by year to add. We had the mandate immediately that we had to jump from, I think, $11 to $15 immediately. And so there were some mandates that came on us as school districts that were unique. We've certainly met all of those challenges head on, but when we're talking really historical perspective, I think it's important to show the full picture as to why these dollars have increased, as to why these dollars have needed to increase, and how we've kept up with pace as to ensuring that all of these programs are continuing to be impactful for our students. So again, from that fiscal conservative perspective, I was one that would say, why in the world has it continued? We know why it's gone up, property values have gone up, but what can we do to reduce that taxpayer burden? And I think it's just important to say what our students are receiving and how we can truly help every student succeed is ensuring that they have PE and soccer opportunities, and they have the opportunity to have visual and performing arts. They have the opportunities to have wonderful media specialists, and our media specialists are required to review every single book that's in every single school now. That wasn't something that was so there are just lots of things that have been put on us through the years that I am so grateful that Marion County taxpayers voted in this referendum in 2016 to allow us to be able to fulfill these needs. But secondarily, it's almost that we were giving strategy ahead of the game, potentially not even realizing what was to come. And so the fact that we've been able to hit some of these things head on and even advancing them is because of the voters that have voted this in. And as we determine what we're going to continue to do, my hope is they'll continue to hear and see the need.
Thank you. Do any other board members have comments regarding this first slide for Mr. Rios-Welch? I know I have some remarks, but I think I'm going to save it until we get to the end on what we're looking to do. So I'll save mine for then. Board Member Thur.
It's going to be a lot quicker than what I just said. And that is, thank you for mentioning the partially funded mandates. Board Member Campbell, we're not going to skimp on safety. We're going to do our best not to skimp on salaries. But we're only allocated, we get these allocations, from the state. Well, if that's not enough, then where does that money come from? Fund balance. If we don't have enough money in fund balance, then where does that money come from? That's when we go to the voters and present the need, and at least then they know. And I think that is going to be pivotal coming into this season, that the communication is really strong, as to the why. Thanks.
Okay, so I'll let you continue.
Thank you, and we really appreciate the questions. Dr. Campbell, we'll get you some information, so comparatively we can look at pre and post referendum going back to 2020. So we'll get that for you. Okay, so as I indicated, the next slide is going to look at $500,000. So it's basically the exact same setup as previously walked through. And here, again, projected ending fund balance at 6.74%, or almost 7%, for the original budget for 25-26. With $500,000, it's half the amount. And so effectively, if we were to look at taking away at least 50% of the current projected revenues, that would put us in a little bit of a better position, but certainly not where we want to be by any stretch of the imagination. If looking down under the orange section of the schedule, you'll see that $20.9 million coming out in revenue, which would leave us with a sizable deficit there for the unassigned other at 12.7 or almost $12.8 million. And so although we would be able to meet our 3% state mandated requirement and some of our other reserves, we would not be where we really want to be in terms of unassigned fund balance. That would put us at about 0.47, which is not something that the administration would recommend. And so these two schedules, looking at them comparatively with the full mill and $500,000, are really to articulate how important the work is that we're doing with referendum funding and what its financial impact is on the bigger picture for the school board. The last question that we have are other ways to fund the breakdown or reabsorption and reimagining what other opportunities there are with the language that exists and some of our ability to look at areas that we feel are really important for us. And so with that, I think Mr. Whitehouse is going to come up and he's going to speak to a subject that came up a little earlier, which I'm actually glad to hear about, which is early learning.
Thank you, Mr. Welsh. So the last piece we have on here is our proposed language for the new referendum for the 2026 November ballot, which would run from 2027 to 2031. And so you'll see the language on here is very similar to what we had on the last referendum initiative. The change that we are recommending is to remove the language for class size and replace that with early learning. And I think this board has made clear their commitment to focusing on early learning, and adding that language in there would allow us to look at some possible expansion with early learning classroom units across the district, and also helping to support our cost of our VPK classrooms.
Okay. Guess you're kicking the ball back to us, right?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. So, board, we can see the language here. Obviously, Mr. Whitehouse has effectively articulated removing class size based on, honestly, the fact that we are pretty much already did that this year. And looking at budget forecasts, the way I understand it, this is going to be probably a new reality for us, at least for a little bit. And so I can see the necessity to remove class size as a language item, because it doesn't appear that's going to be able to be a priority for us for a while from a budgetary perspective. So I think we'll start with board. How do you feel about removal of class size? Let's just start there, if that's okay.
I have a
Board member Thrower.
question.
Sure.
My first one is that years ago when class size was mandated, there was a fine if you didn't meet class size. Would you just provide a brief update on what the state rules are at this point with class size?
Yeah, so the statutory requirement of class size ratio still exists. However, the state has removed the financial penalty. So we still report, we still have to provide feedback to the state anytime we have classrooms that go over that as a school-wide average. Remember, because we are controlled open enrollment, we report that as a school-wide average, not a classroom by classroom. When we originally started with class size amendment, we actually reported every single classroom, and every classroom on your campus had to be below that threshold. So that rule has changed a little bit. But even with our adjustment in ratios, when we reported FTE survey data, we had very few schools that were over the class size limit.
Thank you for that clarification. And with moving towards site-based budgeting, it does provide an opportunity, and it makes sense to me for those class size decisions to have the opportunity to be made, in the trenches. What's your student population? What do you need? What's it going to take to make that happen? So while it's scary to think about removing it, and again, this is going to be a communication opportunity for the community, that no, we're not going to have, 50 kids stacked in an English class, or, whatever the example is, so that they really understand.
Right. The rest of the board, how do you feel about the removal of class size language? I get a thumbs up from Dr. Campbell and a thumbs up from board member Conrad. So we're in agreement with removing class size. Now, how do we feel about adding early learning?
I feel great.
Can I jump on the table and scream with
All right.
from the
I certainly
rafters?
enjoy the prioritization of early learning myself. So it looks like we are in agreement that adding early learning to the language has value and importance with the board. Board, how do we feel about keeping everything else the same?
I just have one question.
Board member Conrad.
I've just thought of this several times as we've gone through conversation throughout the year. Has there been any discussion about adding athletics to this? It's a topic that, or an area that we are always short. Because we are so far behind in the athletics in Marion County. Was that discussed at all? Have you all talked about it as a priority? The board made a $2 million commitment. I just think about, I think we're at 8 years to replace turf fields and tracks. And so if we had referendum that could commit 2 million, we could do that in 4 years. And so I didn't know if you guys tossed that around at all or not.
So, yes, we have talked about that for quite a few years, and what you'll see in the ballot language, which is what we originally started with, is that we promised the taxpayers this was going to be used for operational expenses and not capital expenses, which if we were to make that shift, obviously we would have to change this language. But I think when we first started this in 2014, that's really what got voters on board, was that we needed it for operational costs. We weren't trying to build buildings or do, hard fixtures. We needed people. We needed people and we needed resources for our campuses. So we can certainly get the athletic resources out of there. And we did talk with ICROC at the last meeting about using referendum funding to purchase some athletic resources for South Marion High School, as that's a brand new school that's opening up that's going to require a lot of athletic equipment, and they agreed that that was meeting the language of the referendum. And so we have a little bit of flexibility, but just not with any capital improvements.
Thank you, Mr. Whitehouse, for clarifying. I appreciate it.
And also, to your point, because I don't disagree with you, but I don't think we should change the language either, because I think that is what gets people on board. Most athletic equipment is also equipment that can be used for physical education.
Yes.
So is that the workaround there for purchasing some equipment-related expenses?
Yes, which was our interpretation, and we ran it by the ICROC committee just to make sure that they also held that same interpretation, which they did feel that that was a valid expense following the referendum language.
Okay. So board, further conversation about the language as it's presented?
Good.
Okay, board member Conrad's good. Dr. Campbell?
I think I'm good. My question, I guess, would just be about the professional development part of how we continue to allocate those resources. And it's always the smallest pie, a piece of the pie. We understand that. And I guess that's where we're doing the retaining the state certified teachers and paraprofessionals, and that's how we're pulling that off. I'm curious, though, as we think about this in the future and as we pursue this gifted language and all of that, potentially helping with the certification, the endorsements, and maybe those kinds of things can come out of this as well instead of professional. Anyway, I'm kind of thinking ahead if we were to see this in the future, what that would look like. I think we can still accomplish some of the things out of the way the language reads if you're interpreting the same way I am.
Yes, and I would strongly encourage that we keep that in there, mainly because we're uncertain still about the future of Title II. And
Right.
So Title II covers a lot of our professional development needs, and we actually do reimburse teachers for adding certifications and endorsements using Title II funds, which has been a past practice and will continue as long as the funds exist. But we still have not received any notification about next year if we're going to receive Title II funds from the federal level, and so keeping that language in there at least adds a place where we could try to absorb some of those needs from the referendum funding.
Right, yeah, no, yes, and at the federal level, when we were advocating for that and lobbying for it, there wasn't a huge indicator that it was coming. The misperception of what the dollars were being used for, I think, was a big piece that needs to continue to be a part of our advocacy at the federal level. But no, I was talking myself into and out of the how we're doing that. But I think retaining state certified teachers and paraprofessionals is still the language that needs to be there.
Board member Thur, did you have comments on the language as it's presented?
Just saying that retaining state certified teachers, in my mind, would be hopefully being able to fund some certifications and things for teachers that are going on the gifted track and others. That would certainly help with retention if they weren't having to pay for that out of their own pocket. And just reflecting back as far as 2012, we knew then that we were in bad shape when it came to the budget and capital expenditures, deferred maintenance, all of that. And we ran, a $500,000 for capital and a $500,000 for operating, and just looking, and it failed, sadly. But just looking back at the ballot language, this is how far we've come, that it was saying that no portion of the operating, no portion of this millage used for salary increases. And we kind of, history's a good teacher. How did we get where we are with having trouble getting teachers? So I appreciate you, Attorney Powers, for putting together this packet from a while ago. I've held on to it and have referred back to it because, again, that's part of the conversation to the community. It's not like we haven't been bringing it forward. It's just that there's been a lot of things that have impacted us, but we're not going to let that get in our way of educating kids successfully.
Okay, and thank you, guys. And I will add, I'm uncomfortable with the language as presented as well. My closing comments about what this looks like would be that I would love, we're talking 9 months, right? Not less than 9 months until the election. What I agree with I believe Board Member Thrower talked about when we did the sales tax campaign, the tour of sorts to paint the picture of what it's doing. I think that is incredibly helpful, making a video series and all of that. But I also would like as a board member, I would like a canned understanding of what happens if it doesn't pass. Because I want to be able to tell voters what we will lose. And because it may not be as pure as losing everything that's in this bucket. Because some of this stuff we got to pay for, right? There's some security stuff that has to get paid for, and there's PE, and there are things that have to get done. So as a board member, from an operational perspective, what I would like to understand is in the 27-28 school year, what will that look like to a parent if this does not pass? Because to me, as a parent myself, that testimony probably would be very inspiring and very enlightening. And so my hope would be between operations, and I don't know if the CEP will be involved in those conversations. I see Ms. McCall here from the CEP, but I would hope that we can really work on a very set messaging that is consistent among all of us, as well as anyone in the community, to really truly understand what it will look like if not. Because that is always the message I hear back from people who are adverse to the referendum, is you should figure out how to pay for it yourselves. And so certainly as someone who will be campaigning this season, I would like to be able to articulate what will be lost. Because we don't just have like a secret stash back in the back room. So something will be lost to move the money around. And so I'd love to understand that. Board, any final comments on the referendum?
Just 2 quick comments. Obviously, we have to be careful how we present information because
Totally.
it's not our role. But the information we can present is exactly what's been presented today, and showing what has been happening with the dollars as well as what will go away without the $41+ million. I was able to get my board docs, finally got to the number, just for clarification's sake. I found the 2017-2018 CBA agreement with the Marion Education Association, and the starting teacher salary at that time in 17-18 was $28,200. So the 2025-2026 number that we just approved the other day is $50,000. So that alone, almost $12,000 difference in just one teacher compared to what it was whenever this was originally approved, I think is helpful to understand.
I would have never guessed 28.
I'm sorry, I said 38.
You
Did
said
I say 28? Oh, my goodness.
I was like, there's
I'm so sorry.
way. Because in my head, the number was 36.
Said 28.
So you said 20,
30,
and I was like,
I heard you say 36, and that threw me off. $38,200.
okay, that tracks much better.
$38,000. No, it's almost $12,000 difference.
Okay.
So I did say that part right.
Across
Yes.
how many teachers? That's
Right.
the thing. It's the.
Yes.
Sorry if I misspoke,
No,
but
no, you're okay.
I got the number.
And
Right.
benefits.
Good for you.
Board, any closing remarks regarding the referendum? No? Okay, I want to open it up for public comment on the referendum.
A lot of people have been forward in their seats. I was hoping someone would come down and say something.
All right. Well, hearing no public comment, Dr. Brewer, I think you have the board's consensus in the referendum and moving forward, and we look forward to the partnership with, I'm assuming, the CEP in championing and helping us get this across the finish line for our community.
Thank you, Board.
All right, we will move on to item 6.1, which is the Marion 250. I believe Ms. Connor is going to come forward.
Well,
Okay.
Okay, so no money talk, so we can just get excited about good stuff now. America 250 is the nationwide initiative to celebrate the United States' 250th birthday by commemorating the anniversary of the signing of the Declaration of Independence in 1776. This effort is designed to inspire Americans to reflect on our nation's history, honor the contributions of its people, and strengthen civic engagement. It includes educational programs, community events, service projects, partnerships across state and local organizations, all working together to create a grassroots celebration of America's past, present, and future. Right here in Marion County, we're going to join in this celebration as well. Ms. Conrad and I serve on the Executive Steering Committee for Marion 250, our local initiative. While the committee continues finalizing plans, I do want to share how Marion County Public Schools will participate in this year's theme of Liberty Lives Here. So you heard Bregan talk earlier about red, white, and blue. Read white and blue, and the Literacy Week next week. That's just the beginning. Vanguard High School Drumline, they already started in partnership with the county. They delivered an outstanding performance yesterday at the CEP breakfast, where the Board of County Commissioners and Chair Zalek unveiled several upcoming America 250 events. Marion at the Capitol Day is February 11th, you all know. MCPS has been invited to be the feature presentation at Marion at the Capitol Day. 99 students from Shady Hill Harmony will perform on the Capitol steps, showcasing their incredible talent. We also anticipate remarks from Dr. Brewer and just maybe a Teacher of the Year, highlighting the value of public education in Marion County. Liberty lessons throughout February and March. To commemorate this historic year, we're going to launch a series of 7 Liberty lessons each Wednesday throughout February and March, where schools will be encouraged to share their activities using the hashtag of Marion Celebrates 250. Student art contest, an all-county art competition, will open soon, centered on that theme of Liberty Lives Here. We'll have one winner from each level, elementary, middle, and high, and they will receive a cash prize generously sponsored by Marion 250 partners. Marion County Day, Saturday, March 28th, will be hosted over here at McPherson, and this family-friendly event will include the art contest judging, JROTC drill demonstrations, and a drumline battle of the bands with our local high schools. The winning drumline will receive a cash prize as well, and the opportunity to help lead the potential Patriot Parade planned for July 4th. The county will soon announce plans for a spectacular simultaneous fireworks celebration in 4 corners of our county, and it'll be a great finale to this year's celebration. We're grateful and excited for this opportunity to highlight our students and to demonstrate Marion County Public Schools' commitment to commemorating America and Marion 250.
Thank you, Ms. Connor. Board, any comments about America 250?
I just have a comment.
Yep.
Real quick comment. Ms. Connor, I just want to thank you particularly, and Ms. Hutto. When I look at our executive committee outline, MCPS, 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 MCPS. It's been a good lift, but it's also been a heavy lift. And so I just want to thank you, and Ms. Hutto was here earlier, so I'm sorry that I'm missing recognition there, but I just really appreciate you all stepping in and really getting these. It was a tight timeline, board. It was quick. They had a lot of work to do. They did all the work. So I just want to say thank you. The drum line from Vanguard yesterday was fabulous. They did a phenomenal job. It was very inspiring. Just so proud of our students and the work that they do, each and every day. So thank you for that. I know Marion at the Capitol will be fabulous. I'm looking forward to that. And anything else? Anybody want to have something to share?
Yeah, that's great. Yep, we're excited.
We're excited.
Rock on. Any public comment on Marion 250? All right, hearing none. Board, I want to take a 10-minute break for us to just take a few minutes for ourselves, and we will get back at 11:05 to start the ABAC update. All right? Okay, we are going to go into a brief recess at 10:55. All right, we are back at 11:05, look at us being timely. All right, we are going to move on to the ABAC, or the Attendance Boundary Advisory Committee update, and I welcome Mr. Whitehouse to the podium.
Thank you, Chair. Good morning again, board members, Dr. Brewer. We would like to provide an update from our Attendance Boundary Advisory Committee that has been hard at work the last couple of months, and certainly the lion's share of that work has been Mr. Ayers, so I want to give him a lot of credit for what he's done behind the scenes, and I'm going to try not to disappoint him with my presentation this morning. So as we start back with talking about our goals for the north end of the county, things that we discussed previously, we're making sure that we had efficient utilization of those elementary schools in the north end, that we're trying to decrease operation costs where possible, providing for our student needs, and then the last one was hopefully in the process be able to find a different facility for our Bridgeway students other than where they are currently residing. So the timeline for this, as you'll recall, on the 11th, we had the resolution approved by the board for us to develop the Attendance Boundary Advisory Committee. And thank you all for submitting very quickly your nominations for that committee. And we were able to get that pulled together and to work very quickly. So we met right before Thanksgiving break for the first time on the 21st. With that group, just to outline what the expectations were for the committee, share a lot of initial data just for them to digest over the break. Understanding that we would do a lot of the discussion at our follow-up meetings in December, and then scheduled our 2 follow-up meetings that we came back and talked through. So on the 9th, we came back, talked through a number of items. They requested some additional data pieces just based on their conversation that we were able to then provide again for our conversation on the 16th, and then ultimately the goal was to settle on a recommendation by the 16th, because we knew for any type of rezoning to happen for next school year, we had to move quickly, or else Mr. Ayers would be up against the wall trying to get it done in time. So we were able to come back with a recommendation, which we'll share with you this morning. So the committee reviewed enrollment data and housing data for the North End schools, what we've collected to this point, just to be able to make an informed decision about what we're projecting for future enrollments and student populations in that area. With that discussion, we also said if we can, as we're talking about the North End, try to figure out something we can do with Bridgeway, it would be ideal. But the initial charge was to make sure that we had a proposal for balancing our North End schools. And with that discussion, we also talked about the possible combination of Spar and Anthony, which we have shared with the board in the past, as a potential to reduce some of our operating costs. So the recommendation from the committee was to balance enrollment with Reddick College, Spar, Anthony, and Ocala Springs. And so we'll share what those look like in just a moment. That was the one place that the committee felt very comfortable with. Again, we had a lot of conversation about Bridgeway, but at this point in time, the committee was not comfortable making a recommendation. They felt this was the most logical place for them to start, and where they felt we could have the easiest conversation. And so the other recommendation was, again, looking at that plan to combine Spar and Anthony, knowing that not only could we provide something good for the North End, but also would help us reduce some of those operating costs. So here's the attendance boundary map that you'll see for the different schools outlined there, and then the colored areas are the different quadrants that we identified for clusters of students that we could look at to try and move some zones. When identifying those regions, we try to look for natural barriers that would allow us to create groups of students that make sense for conversation. And so essentially what we're looking at in our proposal to move the zones is A and B up there, which is Citra, moving Citra over to Reddick Collier, which there is a direct route from Citra right over to Reddick, which makes transportation easy. And Mr. Ostanek did participate in each of the committee meetings as an expert, just to be able to answer questions that they have. Section D there, which is the part north of Anthony, would shift up to Spar and allow us to add some more students north that way, and then continuing that northward shift, we would move Section O, which is currently students that are scheduled to go to Ocala Springs, and we would move them up to Anthony. And then you'll also see one of those auxiliary zones that were from the old Evergreen. We had that auxiliary zone originally was traveling to Spar. And at the time, Spar was the only option that we could use because Anthony was a D, and so we couldn't place students at that school. So for years, we've been driving those kids past Anthony to get to Spar. And so the committee felt it made sense to bring them a little bit closer to home and shift them to Anthony so that they were not driving by that school every day. So you'll see here with the enrollment numbers, the current 80-day count that we had for this school year is that first column for each of those schools. You'll see under the school name, we have the school capacity as reported on their FISH for brick and mortar capacity. And so you'll see the percent of that capacity that's being utilized as of the 80-day count. The current students in zone, this is if every student that was living in the attendance zone actually attended the school, which is what we have to plan for when looking at attendance zones. You can see what the capacity would be at each of those schools. The proposed zone moves, so in black are the additions, in red would be the change, so we would be removing those areas from the school and then shifting them to the other school, which I highlight on the last slide. And then you'll see the proposed new zone totals as zoned for each of the schools. So we are able to fill Reddick up a good bit more, moving the students from Citra over. We are, when you look at Ocala Springs, it looks heavy, but again, that's the as zoned. All those students don't actually attend. So essentially what we're doing for Ocala Springs is taking about 80 or so students out of their attendance zone, which would help some of their overcrowding. Acknowledging that SPAR is still low. When we look at the balancing part of the discussion of the committee was leaving SPAR low if the board does move forward with a new SPAR Anthony build allows us the ability to build on site while school is in operation because we could keep all the students in one part of the campus very easily. And then when we combine the schools together, you'd see we'd be at about 650 students, which as you all know is that sweet spot for operating costs for elementary schools. Which would allow us to build a smaller scaled down version of what we have in Winding Oaks and Ross Prairie and allow us to operate that at a much better cost. So the timeline, if the board agrees with our recommendation, in February and March, we would hold community meetings for each of the affected school attendance zones. In March, we would then have a rule development work session, and then April, the rulemaking and the vote for the board, and then by May, we would have parent notification going out so parents knew what school their child would be attending based on those new zones for the new school year. So again, as I think Dr. Brewer mentioned at the very beginning, we are going to continue to meet as a committee. So this is going to be an ongoing conversation, not just continuing to look at Bridgeway Academy, but looking at all of our attendance zones. So we know that we've only talked about our North End schools, but we need to continue to examine not only all of our elementary schools, but our middle school attendance boundaries. We just adjusted high school with the opening of a new high school, but certainly as numbers fluctuate and increase over time, we want to make sure that we're nimble and we continue to have conversations about those attendance zones for all of our schools. So this group was great to work with. They asked a lot of great questions. They're very excited to keep having conversations and to really be a part of the work that we're doing to make sure that we provide great opportunities for all of our students in well-managed schools. Pause at that point.
Great, thank you. Well, board, we have a lot to discuss. I have just one, I think, a starting point, if that's okay, and the pleasure of the board. Mr. Whitehouse, you said something that I think I'd like to correct. You said if the board agrees to build a new SPAR elementary. And in my opinion, we shall not put 248 students as zoned in a school unless there is an intention of a combination. Because we have deemed it very financially irresponsible to operate in that fashion. So I would like to say that this only works for me if that the second half of your statement is a when and not an if. I realize that's not necessarily your purview, but it could be ours, and so I'll say it. I am not at all comfortable with making a school zoned for that many students, 248 as zoned, which is not even how many will attend, unless we are committed to opening a new school in whatever that is, 1-2 years, whatever that timeline looks like, but a very near and immediate future, which puts us in a financially strong position. So I'll start with that. And then the other thing I would say is it causes me heartburn because if in fact we are building a new school, taking students who theoretically have been going to SPAR since kindergarten, who are now third grade, and then, or second grade, and sending them to Anthony for 2 years to then go back to SPAR also causes me pause. So those are the two components there that cause me pause, but I think we need to, my recommendation, board, is that we're having a holistic conversation about the entire plan, which is not just rezoning, but also a school, because absent of one or the other, I know for me, I'm not on board with this plan.
So Chair, I just wanted to correct something there. So our plan is to move from Anthony up to SPAR and then pulling from Ocala Springs up to Anthony. So when the combination happens, what will actually happen is the students who are left at Anthony would then rejoin their peers in the new SPAR Anthony combination. So they would not go north and then back south. It would be half going north now, the other half following north later with the new school.
I understand. What I'm saying is the students who are on the auxiliary zone, F.
Yes.
That's who I'm talking about.
Yep, I got you.
F has been going to SPAR for the last 4 years, and now they're gonna get rezoned to Anthony, and then they're gonna go back to SPAR.
And the auxiliary zones are something we're gonna have to keep talking about with the ABAC as we go forward, because we only addressed one, but there's certainly other auxiliary zones right now, and we can even examine this group again to look at future plans for getting them closer to home and not necessarily still keeping them on the north end.
Yes. So I won't die on the auxiliary zone hill, but I do think it's we're gonna certainly hear from parents who have, their kid has been going to SPAR and they're gonna wind up back at SPAR if we build a new school in 2 years, then they're like, why can't their kid just stay at SPAR? So that's just something that I certainly would wanna discuss in length. So I guess those are my opening remarks, board. I open it up. Board Member Thrower.
Yes, thank you, and I was sitting here celebrating in my head that we were, taking this step, because it's been a long, long time since there's been attention to the north end, and, the growth has been uneven. There's just been a lot of factors in relation to that, including, Evergreen closing. So I am glad to see this as a first step. It positions us better for the future, and not knowing exactly what the future is going to hold. So I would be hesitant to couple this with the mandate that we're going to build a combination school, because you hate to overpromise and underdeliver, especially in 2 years. So I draw caution a little bit to that. I am in support of this as it's currently written. I want to say great job to the attendance committee for, getting on it so quickly and working collaboratively according to everything that I have heard. I will say that there's opportunity here to include city officials. If I think that there is appetite for that, and we do have city kids that, possibly do participate in choice programs, up there. So I think that if we're going to include elected officials in the conversation, that, maybe consider including all of them, and give them the opportunity to say thanks or no thanks. The only other thing I wanted to say, and this just jumped into my mind as I was reading on I think it's the second slide, and it's really just because of the one team, one mission and helping every student succeed. I would offer that, and it's semantics maybe because they're all important, but I would offer that the number one goal always needs to be to provide for students' needs. Obviously, we want to do that in an efficient manner, but to me, that's always going to be number one, provide for the students' needs efficiently in any area. So it was just something that jumped out at me and wanted to share.
Certainly.
That's what I've got. Thanks.
Board Member Conrad or Board Member Campbell?
Ready?
Go ahead.
Excuse me. I'm excited to see this come forward. I am very appreciative to the committee that came to task right away and showed up for several meetings before we went on Christmas break. I was excited also to have different area experts in the room. I agree with Ms. Thrower. I'd like for at least the city and the county to have a seat at the table. I know that the county denied that opportunity, but even if it is a staff member, I'd like to offer a personal invitation, just in the face that we value their opinion. Not that they have to vote or anything else, but just to have a seat at the table. And so I also would like to encourage them to join us, or for us to give them the invitation again. This has just been a long time coming, and I know that it's going to be painful. It always is when you are moving zones and moving schools, and I always put myself in that position. What does that feel like as a parent, or for your child to have to switch schools? So don't make these decisions lightly. But these decisions have been put off for a long time, and so we are going to have to make some decisions, move forward, so we can get further along in the process. So thank you for your work in this and for the committee's work.
I guess, can I just ask a clarifying question to Board Member Conrad real quick? And maybe you're not prepared to speak on it yet, but Board Member Thrower kind of spoke to both components, and so I don't think you offered a remark regarding the combination, the intention of combination, and the forward planning on that.
I think it's highly likely that's where we're headed. At least that's how I feel in the conversation from the board. Is that what you're asking me?
Yes, so the remark I had made was that as we're seeing at Fordham, and these have been conversations the board has had for at least a year now, we're not financially solvent by having schools operate with 200 plus, 200, 300, 400 students. And so this plan as presented still has 2 schools that will be financially reliant on the district supplementing their income of sorts to operate. And so this plan as presented, it will not put us in any better financial position than we are right now. Like, essentially nothing will change. And so unless there is an intention to do some level of combination, whatever that looks like, whether that's a new school, that's a partial build, it's throwing portables up at SPAR, I don't really know how we get there, but unless the plan comes with that, which I can respect the Board Member Thrower says A doesn't necessarily equal B, but I think in this instance, I know for me, I'm not prepared to do rezone when the purpose of, how can I go out to my constituents and say, the purpose of rezoning is to be more financially responsible. Well, this is not more financially responsible if this is the end goal. It will put us, we are seemingly in the same position. So there has to be some, and our sales tax plan has that outline. So I can respect Board Members Thrower saying we don't want to promise things we can't deliver, but the sales tax plan is essentially the plan that is the, reprioritizing our sales tax plan is the guarantee, because that money is coming regardless. So that is essentially the way to validate where we go with it. But I will just say, I can't get on board with a rezoning that doesn't solve the problem we intended for it to solve. So I just wanted to, if you had a take on what you wanted after the rezoning, that was my question.
I can only say what I think and what I feel as a board member, and that's, I feel like we're headed in that direction. Can I promise it? No, I cannot, but that is my intention, is that we're moving in that direction. I also want to point out, and I know Mr. Whitehouse shared, I'm thankful this committee came together, but we need a long-range plan. We need to be looking at, and I know we're looking at this section right now because it's where we have the most struggle with capacity. But we need a long-range plan that encompasses the whole district, and it needs to be systematic. My ask has been, okay, we're going to look at this, we're going to evaluate, and we're going to move forward. What's our next step? And so, Dr. James, to your point, I think that's a piece that's missing to this conversation is, what are our next steps?
Respectfully, I think staff is waiting on us to tell them, I mean, I don't want to speak for Mr. Whitehouse and Dr. Brewer, but they're waiting on us to make a decision on what we do next, I think. But Dr. Campbell, do you have remarks, I'm sure?
So what I believe this proposal starts to solve is our vacancy rate at Reddick Collier Elementary. So, I understand the concern of having a school with 248 students. That is not going to be an answer that I'm going to be on board with either. However, I was excited that we're at least trying to start solving the Reddick Collier issue. And I'm not trying to reopen a can of things that we don't need to even consider, but the other North End school that's not on this is Fessenden, and it's potentially because we said don't touch Fessenden, but they are at 97% capacity, and they are a North End school. So I understand why potentially that wasn't discussed, but I struggle with that not even being a part of the potential conversation that the attendance boundary committee had.
So I can address that, Dr. Campbell. We did look at Fessenden. When you look at where the students live in the Fessenden zone, the bulk of them either live right around Fessenden or they live just west of I-75. So there was not an easy way for us to pull a large group of kids away from Fessenden towards Reddick without pulling all those kids who were right around the Fessenden school north.
Yeah, where our pockets of students are is just going to be different than where our schools are built. And so that's, when I look at the map that you have here, which ironically is labeled option 1, so I'm assuming that the attendance boundary committee had a couple of options, and this just happens to be the one. It's still named option 1 for us. But the thing that's interesting to me is essentially students who live right around Anthony are now going to go to Spar, and students who live right around Spar are now going to go to Reddick. And so that's going to be difficult for families to understand. However, it's just kind of the nature of where everybody is. And so with some of those kids in that section B, it's like either you're going to head west to Reddick Collier or you're going to head east to Fort McCoy, and it's not really going to help you one way or the other. So, we could put some of them in Fort McCoy. We have space there too. So to answer your main point though, Dr. James, I'm not comfortable with saying today that we are going to replace some of the other priorities that we have where the higher populations of students are. For example, if we were to do a Spar Anthony over a Bellevue Elementary, Bellevue Santos, I'm going to disagree with that. I don't know that that's what's being.
No, that's not even plausible. We've already, Bellevue, we're like.
Right, so, right. So I think part of that question though is, so what do we, if we were to move this up, right, what is it that we move down? And I respect that District 5 needs to have some capital money coming out of that sales tax. I don't know that it's at the elementary levels where I want to put it. And I'm just going to be frank on that. We know what our birth rate numbers look like. And if I'm putting money somewhere in the north side, it probably will be where the most students can be served, which would be at the middle or high school levels, because that's where they all come together. So that's where I am on it. I don't know what that means for this answer. We do need to solve this Reddick Collier issue. We do need to figure out where all these kids could go. Could they all just go to Spar? No, because
So I would counter that to say, honestly, I say we buy portables and put portables at Spar. We cannot financially continue to operate this way. And that has been the crux of my approach on this since I got on the board. What we are doing is financially irresponsible. We cannot continue to operate with 200 and 300 and 400 students at schools. It's just, it does not make financial sense. And so while it is not ideal, I would stand by, let's buy portables and put portables at Spar and and figure out a little bit of capital improvement at Spar to make it make sense so that they have the facilities they need to serve a population of 600 students, and just do it and move the kids and be done with it. But we cannot continue. This plan is a plan to fail if it does not have intention to do something different later, because there's not a bunch of people are moving into Spar, y'all. It's not like Spar's population is just going to magically grow 2-3 years from now, we're gonna look up and go, well, we just lost $1.5 million a year for a couple years, and now all of a sudden we're gonna have to rezone the north end again because we can't continue to sustain losing millions of dollars a year at every school. So,
I agree with you. The things SPAR would need today, if we were to just not give them a brand new school and not, give them the model that's Ross Prairie and Winding Oaks and about to be Bellevue, but they had some capital improvements there. I don't know what the cost would be. They need expansion of their media center
cafeteria.
and cafeteria. Those are the two things that they absolutely need.
Well, and instructional classrooms.
Well, media, we can do instructional classrooms with portables potentially, but media center, I mean, it looks like we could potentially knock out a wall and just figure out how to make that be expanded as opposed to create a brand new one. And I see Miss Usher like with her hand on her head because we're talking, but, and then the cafeteria, I mean, those are just spaces that absolutely have to be expanded for us to be able to do any kind of combination there whatsoever. I am comfortable with us figuring out what that looks like to the tune of potentially $5 to $10 million or something. I am not comfortable with a $30 to $40 million new school there.
So, and I guess we're having an open discourse board. I hope that's okay with everybody and feel free to jump in. But my heart wants a new school on the north end, and I believe wholeheartedly that the north end deserves its portion of the sales tax. However, as a financial steward, one of 5 financial stewards to this billion-dollar budget, this is not going to work for me. And so if the common ground for right now is that SPAR and Anthony combined immediately and we figure out what needs to happen from a capital perspective this summer, I guess, to make it functional space for August, then that's what I'm willing to get behind, to make it a functional space. And certainly, if I called Dr. Allday right now, she's probably listening, just shaking in her boots. But Dr. Campbell's not wrong. The media center needs attention. The cafeteria has to be addressed to be able to seat more students. The PE multi-purpose area is less than ideal for indoor PE. The art and music are served in a portable, so there has to be some level of improvement there to be able to deliver at least to that many more students. And then there's a necessity for classroom portables. I also would offer the new buildings that were built in the 90s, which were are supposed to be 2 classrooms but are being used as 1 because they have false walls. Theoretically, we could put up some real walls potentially that would then allow for maybe 8 more classrooms, because I think on the Fish report it reads as, is it a 16? There's 16 classrooms probably in those 2 buildings. I could be wrong, but I think there's technically 16 classrooms, but they're really used as 8-ish because the false walls are not functional. Anyone who's taught in a classroom with false walls knows you can't teach. So potentially throwing up some real walls and creating some actual functional space would be able to problem solve away some portables. But that would be a plan that I could get on board with, because ultimately what I see is that the ABAC says they want SPAR and Anthony together. That is what I hear from what the ABAC found. But unless the board is going to make a financial commitment, we can't get there. And so we have to navigate what that's going to look like from a board perspective to get us across the finish line to make this decision.
So, Chair,
Yep.
just interject for a moment. So I just want to go back to what our proposal was in the fall for the SPAR-Anthony combination. I know it's been a minute since we talked about it. So we actually have some cost savings that we had dedicated from sales tax for our Denellen program that we are no longer going to utilize because we're going to do our own evaluation of what the needs are for that campus. And we also scaled back on the new Bellevue building, because one of the buildings is so new, we're not going to tear it down. So we were actually able to scale back on the design, which saved us some more money in sales tax. So combining those 2 savings and delaying the Denellen campus by 1 year, we would have enough funds to build the new SPAR-Anthony campus and keep the newer building that's already at SPAR to be able to move Fiddlers over from the Fiddlers spot over into the SPAR campus in that new building to take care of both of those issues simultaneously.
Thank you for the perspective.
Goes into the next, next presentation.
Board Member Thrower.
timeline for what you just proposed?
I gotta look at Ms. Usher, it's 28, 29?
2028.
We're bleeding into our next presentation here, so I
that's
gotta call up reinforcements.
Well, but I think we need the information to be able to make an informed decision.
Yes, the Dunellen Middle High School, when we presented it to you in the 5-year capital plan, we had it opening in 2030. If we do what Mr. Whitehouse said, we have $3 million right now that we were going to do a study for Dunellen that we can put towards this project, and because we are keeping 2 buildings at Bellevue Elementary, the cost of the new Bellevue Santas will get savings from there. So if we push back the Dunellen Middle High to 31, we can open a new Spar Anthony in 29.
In 29, okay.
Which is slated.
All right, because, and that's really important to have that timeline, which helps me a lot in terms of what to advocate for here. Because I also want to honor the attendance, committee and their hard work, and looking at taking pressure off of Ocala Springs, getting some students to Reddick, accomplishes what's been proposed. We also can't lose sight of the fact that that whole area up there, it's unique. It's unique geographically, it's unique in culture. So as we make these, sharp pencil decisions, which are also very important, it's also just as important to keep a good eye on the reality, of what's up there. I don't know if the rest of you got the same text as I did right before Christmas about a new multifamily development that apparently has already been approved up in District 5. Did you guys get that same? Okay.
I mean, it's not approved in Spar.
Right, I didn't get the exact location, but District 5, which is large, geographically. So if anyone thinks that development's not coming to that area, it's not coming as fast as the Southwest, which is, clearly our biggest challenge right now, but it is coming. So again, I think that taking this step, and this is exactly back to where we started, with an eye towards getting the Spar-Anthony combination going. I see that, on this slide. I got a little spooked when I heard, okay, it's going to be, done in 2 years, we just have to be careful about what we're promising here. And so that's where I'll leave it.
So, Dr. Campbell?
I mean, and I completely respect the direction we're going, a new Spar-Anthony combo, whatever. I'm still pulling that back a little bit just to say I agree. Let's combine Spar and Anthony. I don't know that it needs to be a complete brand new school. What I don't want to have happen, I don't want to be the board that chose to build one of our newest schools in a location where we are in this exact same situation 5, 6, 7 years from now, when birth rates in Marion County are tanking. They have across the world. We know that. Where people are not moving there. I don't want to be the board that chose to put a $20 to $30 million brand new building in an area that there's 200 kids. And potentially, that's the future we're going in. We know yesterday with the county commission presentation, you all have seen the urban growth boundary. While they may have approved something, also District 5 for the county is different than District 5 for the school board. It's her anyway, so I'm not sure exactly where the development is. The District 5 county commissioner gave us that information.
Yes.
But District 5 for...
Saying that it wasn't District 5.
I don't know, because I'm not certain exactly. I didn't look to see exactly where the development was going. I'm just saying their District 5 is different than our District 5.
Well, and all of the schools we're talking about right now are actually in District 4 for the county commission. So, because District 4 for the county commission essentially encompasses Anthony Spar, everything on the right side of 75, the east side of 75, so.
Anyway, I want to reiterate, I agree. We need to put some of those sales tax dollars on the north side. I think there are ways that we can do that differently, more creatively than a brand new school. But that is just not wise fiscal sense for us to build something, one of our beautiful new model schools. We're dealing with that right now. The whole reason we're having a conversation about Reddick is because prior to us building a new school in Southwest new elementary schools in Southwest, that was one of the newest school. I mean, it really is one of our newest schools, and it was built in the 80s because the school district wasn't building forever. That's why we're not talking about closing Reddick Collier.
Yes.
So I don't.
And I don't disagree with you, Dr. Campbell. Like, I mean, yeah, my dream is to have a brand new school. I think, as someone who resides in the community, I will stand by that testimony. But I also totally understand that the dynamic of the 5 board members is that we have to compromise, and we have to have the things that are most important to us, and we also have to realize that we have to come to a commonality. And what you're saying to me is very valid, because I certainly wouldn't want to be a board member who finishes my 8 years and then, you know, my kids are in high school and I'm sitting as a community member looking at conversations about closing what is a brand new school. So I don't disagree with you, and I think that's a very valid testament. But what I would want to see is staff start figuring out how to get us there. But we as a board need to agree that we're going to get there, because otherwise I can just say for me, and I'm only one vote, but I'm not agreeing to a rezoning, and I think I heard Dr. Campbell say the same thing, of 248 students unless there is an intentionality behind a combination, because we cannot sustain it. Board Member Thur?
An intentionality for continued improvement up there, I can get behind. What that ends up looking like, I think that staff deserves the opportunity to digest what we've regurgitated to them and give us, you know, some options. I see some head nods from some important people. So maybe we're not gonna get there in today's conversation, that we know that there is continued need up there. What that looks like is also to be continued. And for now, I want to honor the work and the intention of the Attendance Boundary Committee. That's what we put them together for. And let's start moving, you know, let's at least take that step.
Yeah, as a board
We know it's needed.
Yes, what I would say is by the time we vote on a rezoning, which I think is in May, right? Is that what the timeline said? Okay, rulemaking is in April, in 3 months from now, right? Essentially?
Yes.
By the time we do rulemaking as a board member, I want to know what the plan is. That would be something that I would request, of what is the plan, because I don't know that I'm behind what could be a permanent 248 student max enrollment, because that's as zoned. So that's something I would need as a board member by the time we get to rulemaking.
And the reality of when that can be brought back, if that's,
And that is the
doable.
purpose of the rulemaking. And so and our community meetings will be very beneficial. Those start in February. So February, March, we'll be in the community listening, getting input. So we'll be able to provide that to Dr. Campbell's talk.
Dr. Campbell?
So I'm gonna talk about this at the end, but just in a couple weeks, school choice window will close. And I'm also gonna be interested in knowing how many of these students are applying to come out of zone. We already know we have the current in-zone student versus what the enrollment is, and so, but I'm also interested in knowing how many of those students are interested in driving to get out of the zone and what that looks like, because they know if they were doing a school choice, they would be going elsewhere. I also want to respect what the committee has done. I can get behind the Reddick Collier and the Ocala Springs recommendations, the A and B and the G and O. We just got to figure out the D, F, like we got to figure out the rest. I don't want all of this work that they've put in to go for naught. And they've met 3 times on a very aggressive time schedule. And we have to fix the Reddick Collier issue. I think A and B does it.
So, but my question would be, we have to fix the Reddick Collier because of Schools of Hope. Respectfully, Spar Elementary was a very low C, and so last year. And so are we not theoretically opening ourselves up to the same exact problem at Spar that we have at Reddick right now? Because Schools of Hope then, if Spar is still a C, then okay, but if they are not still a C, then we are theoretically exposing ourselves to the same threat that we have right now. So we're just robbing Peter to pay Paul with problems. And that's what I'm trying to avoid, because yes, we are solving the Reddick Collier problem. And Reddick is a much more preserved campus. So let's fill it up. I totally agree. But if we're just exposed, because if we have a plan, then we can go to the state and say, yeah, because it's 2 years, we got to do the modifications and then, right? But if we don't have a plan, then we're just leaving ourselves just as open.
We're also talking about offlining the Fiddler's building and moving that to Spar. So maybe that could occur, yeah,
It's in the next,
to protect,
that piece.
to protect that.
Dr. Campbell?
So my only question about these community meetings coming up in February. So we've all been to these community meetings, and historically what the community meeting has is the map of here's what's gonna happen. But what we're asking for is the community meeting to actually help formulate the plan. I just wanna make sure that we're on the same page there, because every time these community meetings happen, it's like, this is what's happening. And so that, I don't think, is what we're asking for this time around.
I'm on board with what's happening, as long as what happens after what happens is planned. Because this plan is the plan, and this is what the community meetings would have. But then there's a slide missing that says in 2027 or in 2028, based on revitalization of SPAR's campus, Anthony and SPAR then combined. Like, that is essentially what's missing. And so, yes, this is what would be as part of the presented plan, because we all say this is what needs to happen. And I don't disagree with the short-term 248 and 410 if the, 2-year or 3-year plan involves solving that problem.
Well, hold up now, it's right on slide 5. Committee recommendation, balance enrollment between Reddick, Spar, Anthony, and Ocala Springs, plan for a combination of Spar and Anthony in the near future to reduce operating costs. That's intention there. What the timeline is and how that actually looks and what might go there first. I'm thinking of Fiddlers again, to provide some protective cushion against Schools of Hope while we're getting the rest of it all going. That's to be determined, and I think we owe it to staff to, bring us back.
Yes.
Which plan is.
And that's all I'm saying, is by the time we get to rulemaking in April, I would feel more comfortable with the decision, understanding what's coming next. That's how I feel as a board member voting on the rulemaking. Dr. Campbell, did you have any further thoughts?
I mean, I agree with all the thought process of combining Spar and Anthony, but I have already gone on the record and will continue to do so. I do not believe that needs to be a $30 or $40 million new school.
Okay. Board Member Conrad?
I'm on board with bringing a more solidified plan to us by April. I think that the steps are in place. We just need to get to the finish line.
Board Member Thor?
More solidified plan in April, and I look forward to seeing it. Making my best decision then.
Okay. Does that round up what you need, Mr. Whitehouse?
I think we got what we need.
Okie dokie.
Yep.
Is there any public comment on the ABAC update?
I'd like to comment.
Yep, Board Member Brewer.
It's nice to have this conversation, though, when we know so many of our districts nearby are just today having closure of school conversations. So I know this is difficult and it's uncomfortable for even our community members, but we are not having a closure conversation. We're looking at ways to combine schools and fill the schools with capacity. So thank you for your conversation and your input today.
And I want to say thank you, Dr. Brewer, and Chair, for the opportunity to converse and remind the public this is the only opportunity we have to have these conversations. So, yes, together, at a board meeting.
Brainstorming in public is what I call that.
It's not always fun.
Well, and to Dr. Brewer's point, while we have some difficult conversations that we will continue to have as boards, like Orange County's today talking about closing 7 schools. So our biggest concerns are some other districts, like that would be like a blip on the radar. And so I feel still grateful that we are in the position we are in, and it could be a lot worse. And so for that position, I know I am grateful. And the ABAC has done tremendous work. And obviously we kind of started that a little late, so I'm hopeful that the timeline for their meetings will obviously be more appropriately scheduled for Mr. Ayers' purpose for the rezoning and just understanding what that looks like, because this is obviously a tighter timeline than we would traditionally. Board Member Thur.
Just finally, I wanted to acknowledge that we do have at least one member of the ABAC here in the audience. Two. I see Mr. McConico, I see
Dr. Dawson.
Dr. Dawson. Hey, Dr. Dawson. So that's great. Thank you.
I can't remember if I asked for public comment.
You did.
I did, okay. All right, well, hearing none, Board, do you want to take a quick break, or would you like to just move into site utilization? Let's
Power
keep going, okay.
Utilize some sites.
Okay, so then we will move on to site utilization, item 8.1, and it's an update on a variety of sites across the district.
Dr. Brewer, thank you. Good morning, Chair James, board members. You all asked that we bring to you the site utilization for upcoming vacated sites. So today we'll focus on 5. These 5 are the Technology Information Service property, and that site should be available by January 2027. Thank you. The Bellevue Santos Elementary School site, which should be vacated by August 28th. The Fiddlers Florida Diagnostic and Learning Resource, we are looking for direction from the board on the use of that site. We just had a discussion at Anthony Elementary School, and what should be done with that site. So this will just follow that. And the Lakeway Middle School, that will be available August 2028. So these are the sites we're focusing on. Mr. Xavier Balerdi is our new planning manager. He will provide information on these sites. It is at the pleasure of the board if you all want to discuss each site after he presents each site, or you want to go through the entire PowerPoint and then discuss it afterwards. So,
Board, what would be your preference? Do you want to discuss each site as presented, or wait until the end?
I would prefer to go through the whole.
Okay, let's do the whole thing.
all right, thank you. So, Mr. Balerdi?
Thank you, Ms. Usher, for the introduction. Happy to make my first presentation to the school board today. Today, we'll be covering some potential vacated sites, potential future vacated sites. I'm going to emphasize potential. I know there's a lot of discussion and a lot of moving pieces that we need to consider. Ms. Usher gave us a little rundown of what we're going to be covering, so we'll just dive in. So we'll start off with a little disclaimer from the property appraiser's office. Most of the data that we're going to present today comes from the property appraiser, and it's public information collected primarily for property tax purposes. It's provided for general reference only and should not be relied upon as a substitute for a licensed appraisal, title search, or land survey. What you see on this slide is the important disclaimer that greets you on a property appraiser website. So just take the values that you'll see with caution. Here are 2 definitions that I just want to offer. Their distinctions. For the most part, you'll see that these 2 values are similar, but in some cases, they may differ. The definitions outlined on this slide help explain why those differences occur. So total just value is the total market or just value of the entire parcel for assessment purposes, and a total assessed value is the total assessed value of the entire parcel, excluding any impact from Amendment 10, the 10% cap, and or agricultural classifications for assessment purposes. And just a reminder, these are not formal appraisal values, but values from the Marion County Property Appraiser. So we'll start off with the current Technology and Information Services property located east of downtown Ocala. The new Technology and Information Services site is expected to be completed at the end of this year in December 2026 at the old Phoenix site, with this site that you see on the slide to be vacated shortly after. While this parcel is divided up into 3 geometries, today we're only focusing on the northern portion where we have the old school board building and the current Technology and Information Services building. That portion in the north is just over 1 acre, and based on the proportionate size, has an assessed value of $823,000 and a total just value of $928,000. Now we'll talk about the Bellevue Santos Elementary School, and I'll just offer up some context that was discussed previously, but the new Lake Weir Middle School campus is expected to open in August 2027. During construction of the combined Bellevue and Bellevue Santos Elementary School campus, Bellevue Elementary School students will be temporarily housed at the current Lake Weir Middle School site, which we'll talk about in a little bit. This site, the Bellevue Santos Elementary School, is expected to be vacated in August 2028. This parcel is 16.6 acres and has an assessed and total value of $5.8 million. And just to note that this site is located on a major arterial, South US Highway 441. Now we have Fiddler Springs. It's currently occupied, as we know, and has no expected vacation date. The site encompasses 20 acres and also houses our Zone 2 bus compound, which you can see north of the two older buildings. It has an assessed and total just value of $1.4 million. Where we do have the two Fiddler buildings, that area is more or less 4 acres, and it is fenced off from our bus yard. So now we have the Anthony Elementary School site that I know we just had some discussion on. And as we know, we are in the process of attendance boundary changes. This might be a possible vacated site in August 2029 if an Anthony Spar combination campus is realized. The site has a little over 8 acres and has an assessed and total just value of $2.8 million. The last potential vacated site is the current Lake Weir Middle School campus. Just to remind everyone, the new Lake Weir Middle School campus is expected to open in August 2027, and Bellevue Elementary School students would be temporarily housed here while the combined Bellevue and Bellevue Santos is constructed. Just to note, the replacement site for the new Lake Weir Middle School was acquired through eminent domain, and in the taking, it was stated that this campus was in really bad shape and should be demolished. This site could potentially serve as the site for a new VPK Early Center, as there has been some discussion.
We don't mean to laugh at you, but it's just so sad. So we're laughing instead of crying, sorry. We're not laughing at you.
Yeah, I understand. Was another board, another time. So those are the 5 sites that are, we have future potential vacation. At this point, are there any questions or directives for staff?
I know I have a question for Attorney Powers, more than you. I know that we had discussed previously, timely talking about listing properties that the board wants to list so that we are not like the warehouse sitting for essentially almost a year with an empty property that we could have been using that money to problem solve our capital necessities. So my question would be specifically regarding A, which is the Technology and Information Services property. I would like to know, a board first, if it is the pleasure of the majority of the board, to start the discussion around what we do next. What are we listing? Are we putting it out to bid? How are we going about this? I'd like to get the board's take on that, and then of course Attorney Powers. Board Member Thrower.
With the Technology and Information Services building property, is that to include the old school board building?
Yes.
Okay, just wanted to confirm.
That's what this slide has.
Correct.
It's the front building.
It's not just the
It's
back
the whole
part.
block, yes, the whole block.
1 acre.
So it's one parcel number, but it's divided up into those 3 geometries. We're talking about that northern most portion, which you see in the right-hand photo.
So the entire block, which includes the old Central Elementary, as well as all of the data stuff behind it.
Okay, all right, that's what I thought, just wanted to confirm, because once it's out there, then we're gonna start hearing from the historic preservation folks and, hops and so on, so, just want to put it out there that there's going to be people that are going to show a lot of interest in the historical preservation of that spot, and they may or may not then want to make a fair and good bid,
But that's what the process would allow, right? I think that's what I'm looking to understand from Attorney Powers is, if the board is interested, which I'd like to hear from everyone, and because we're talking now, we're essentially 11 months out from vacating, so it took us like 8 or 9 months to sell the warehouse. So I would love to start, if we know that that's the direction we want to go, I'd love to start the process. But I think let's hear from the whole board, maybe Attorney Powers, before Board Member Conrad or Campbell.
Let me ask you, is this just this one property that you're looking at right now?
Yes.
Yeah.
If you're just talking about one property, then what I would need is for facilities to identify that property specifically. So we'll need to make an announcement that it's not suitable for educational purposes or use. And then from there, we would begin the process of a confidential appraisal. And then the board could decide based on that what it wanted to do moving forward for either a bid process or another form of sale.
I don't want to do what we did, so that's what I know. But, Dr. Campbell?
Sale bid thing.
So that's where my question is, them saying it's not for educational use. I mean, the old district.
Current form, it's
In its
no longer.
current form,
No longer suitable for educational purposes. It doesn't
Okay.
mean that with a lot of,
Sure. But then where does that place us also, because it actually was a former school, as opposed to the central warehouse that was just a big open space? This was a former school. Where does that put us with charter schools having first right of refusal?
well, the board would have to declare that it's not usable for a educational purpose, for our purposes.
Okay.
If someone else then chooses to have that right of first refusal, they would be able to do so.
Okay. Because that's the other piece that plays into this. But yes, I am absolutely all for selling it, or at least giving first right of refusal at the
Yep.
beginning.
But starting the
phase.
process.
Starting the process on that one piece of property, absolutely.
Board Member Conrad? Yes. Okay, so I think what I hear from the board that's present today is we want to start the process to get the ball rolling on this parcel.
Copy that.
I do think we will want to have deeper discussion about how we sell it, if we do intend to sell it.
Yeah, and I would point out to the board, there were 3 times along the way that your attorney said we should do it this way instead, and the board had a lot of discussion, and the board wanted to do it in the way that the board devised. Sometimes it's best to leave this to your attorney and the outside counsel who's professional at it, rather than trying to, and I know there were problems with outside counsel and some of the folks that they chose as well. However, that wasn't the path that we were going down initially. Initially, we were going down a path that would result in a clean sale.
Yes, and so I think a separate work session agenda item where we discuss in the not-so-distant future, the processes that we would like to explore for listing this particular parcel would be super helpful. We don't need to get into the details
I will come
today.
with a strong recommendation of what that purpose should be, and then if not, I'll let you all do your chef work.
Yep. Okay, so that was my only comment regarding the items. I do think I'd love to be able to do this well and set a precedent so that then theoretically, closing to the conclusion of selling this, we could then talk about Bellevue and et cetera, and kind of just keep the process rolling. So I know that's something that I would love to be able to do, but for me, the only one I really had a question about right now, I mean, I guess, obviously, the Fiddler's property, we can have discussion about if this, I hadn't even thought about the building at Spar that Board Member Thrower brought up, but if we could, what was the square footage? It's escaping me now, but what was the square footage that they wanted, Fiddler's?
20,000, I thought.
The difference between Fiddler's currently has like 10 classroom and a big conference room, and I think they would like to replicate that. The space we have right now at Reddick in that old building, no,
I think what we're talking about is Spar. So if we rezone Spar and we had essentially that new classroom building, I'm sorry to interrupt you, but that new classroom building at Spar, with the decreased student enrollment, the new classroom building would not be needed, I think was what, and remember
the capacity at Spar right now is 410, the enrollment is 228, so it'll be like 200.
Yes. What I'm saying is, how many square feet, and this would maybe be a staff question to come back to the board with.
I will have to look
But
at
how
the
many
square
square
footage.
feet is the newer building that was built in the 90s at Spar Elementary, and would that be suitable for Fiddlers? Because I know Board Member Thrower's thought pattern on that was to circumvent a Schools of Hope situation. Could we talk about that? I also know that that wing is on the far east side of the campus, and so theoretically, we could probably navigate separate entrances, et cetera, there. So it's not like it's in the middle of SPAR's campus. So from a functionality standpoint, it might make sense.
Chair James, are you meaning to vacate ourselves to that premises also? I mean, you want to sell that?
Well, only if Fiddlers can fit into SPAR, but yes, I mean, if Fiddlers,
The rest of the board agrees.
well, I mean, yeah, I'm not queen, but what I'm saying
What
is
I'm
I
asking
think
is,
what I at least heard,
will this need to be something that's added to the list of property?
we're not there yet.
Let me look into
We're not there yet. Yeah, I don't think we're there yet. I mean, we can be, but we need to understand if building, I don't know the building number.
We did have this conversation, and we believe he needs 10 classrooms. It would be able to fit into the SPAR space.
I think so, Dr. Brewer, but the square footage, Dr. James, I do not know right off, so it's something I'll have to come back with.
My guess would be that it would also fit, based
Okay.
on having been in both places, so.
We'll bring that
But
back to you.
it'd be good to know, because I think, I mean, the rest of the board, do you want to weigh in on Fiddlers moving into SPAR's co-location situation? Board Member Conrad?
I think it's a great idea if it will fit, which it's sounding like we think it will fit, but we need a definite.
Yes, and Dr. Campbell, did you have a thought on that?
I just appreciate understanding where our bus depots are also, and that it's on the same property, and just ensuring that transportation doesn't have any need for that building at all, ever, then that would be the only other question that I would have about that specific location. But I would be fine with moving forward and selling that if we don't have any need for that ever from transportation.
Have we started the roof project at Fiddlers yet? Thank God. Okay. Because certainly it would be very
We have
unfortunate.
not, we have it budgeted at 360,000, but we really do need to start it, so we're waiting for direction. So we haven't started as yet.
I think based on the conversation today, I think we need to try to hold off, because if we're going to move Fiddlers, if SPAR is really only gonna have 250 kids next year, and we really do have space for that, and like, if all of those things are gonna happen, then there's no reason to put a roof on a building, unless, of course, it would be contingent upon a sale, but I don't think that would be necessary personally, so that's my thought on that.
I agree.
Okay.
Take the money.
So those were the two items on this list that I had questions about right now. Board Member, Dr. Campbell.
The only other question I have is, I really would like a little bit more elaboration on eminent domain and what that's going to prevent us from doing on that campus in the future. I know it came up.
Which campus?
Lake Weir Middle School.
It doesn't prevent us from doing anything, the fact that we utilized eminent domain. Once the property has been pulled from eminent domain, we convert it to a public purpose. It's still under a public purpose for some period of time, for the duration of our possession of it. Now, if we then choose to turn around and sell that property, we still can sell our property. It's no longer serving as an educational purpose. Now, if it were within a certain time frame, and I'll have to get with statute to find out what that is, if it were in a certain time frame and we were essentially flipping properties like that using eminent domain, of course, that would not be acceptable. So, but I don't envision that being a problem in this scenario.
And we would have condemned it back 20 years ago or something, whenever the original sales tax went into effect.
Yeah, we're not flipping anything.
Dr. James, it was eminent domain in 2019, and as Attorney Powers said, it's correct. Nothing is wrong with the property. Just reading through the case, it just says that the building was in such deplorable state that we had to eminate it. We could not use it and had to eminent domain the other side to be able to build a replacement. But the property, we can do whatever we want to do with it.
Okay. That was the only other question that I had about it.
Board Member Farrar, did you?
It's like, is history repeating itself here? Because isn't that how Forest High School here turned into Forest High School on Marion?
A little bit.
Yes,
You
yes.
know, it's deplorable, and
Deplorable.
yet here we sit.
It is, but I don't know that we purchased the property that
Doesn't
Forest
feel
sits
too
on
deplorable.
now
It must
through
be the
eminent
people.
domain. I don't know that happened. The eminent domain was because we purchased the property in Silver Spring Shores.
Yeah.
And it's the eminent domain and so that's how that happened. I don't know how we obtained the property that Forest High School sits on now, but I don't think it was eminent domain. It was deplorable conditions that this building.
Still is.
And we still have hundreds of students on this campus. Okay.
Okay,
moving on.
so board, the first few slides there that were discussed, are there any other further discussions? To recap, we talked about going ahead and initiating the process for listing A, and then understanding if C will fit into SPAR, and if so, then talking that through to impact as well after that information is gathered. Is that a good summary?
And I'll just need from facilities whatever property records we have. And very specifically, would have helped us a lot on the warehouse if we had had maintenance records and any prior records of our interactions with the property. What we got back from the time from facilities, and it wasn't, nobody here is currently on staff that was there at the time, but we had a warehouse that we had for a very long time, and we couldn't provide any data really whatsoever on how it had been used or what inspections had been done or even how it was built. So any data we have on the property that will help, that'll then determine our next step as to whether we want to get a confidential appraisal initially out of the gate, or whether we just want to open up to an open bid process.
All right. Board member.
Thank
Fuller?
you.
Just to clarify on the Fiddler's Springs, it says the acreage is 20 acres. And the building I know doesn't cover the 20 acres.
Yeah.
So,
Correct, so the entire parcel is 20 acres, but if you look at the fenced-in portion where you have the two buildings, that's the southern end of the parcel, that's about 4 acres.
okay, so.
And this is using property appraiser values, these are not surveys.
Right, so we would be looking at selling the building in the 4 acres, not, or the whole thing?
From what I understand, transportation utilizes the bus yard, and it's an important asset to the school district.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah, so we would just be, I think that, we'd have to talk about that further, but yes, it would be just talking about the front part there.
Right, so we can't begin to think that we would be making the amount of money that's listed as the assessed.
No, I mean,
Because that's
well,
based
also,
on the 20, with
I
everything.
mean, that's just a property appraiser value. too.
Right, heard. But again, we'd be looking at a building in 4, not,
Yes, and I agree with board member Thrower, I don't think we can get rid of the transportation
right,
asset.
right. Okay, just wanted to clarify that. I'm good.
All right, I think you're good to move forward.
Great. So we also inventoried other vacant sites owned by the school board and identified a list of 12 parcels that have no existing buildings. This is just to offer y'all an inventory for informed discussion. So when you see the word extension in the site name, that indicates the vacant parcel is directly adjacent to an existing school site. This list is provided as an informational inventory only and does not speak to the suitability of any site for development. At the board's direction, we can conduct an additional investigation and analysis as needed. So here's a map of Marion County with those 12 sites indicated in red. If you hold down Control, if you're using a PC, and you click the map, you'll access an embedded link to an interactive web map we created. And if you focus your attention on the top right-hand corner of that web app, you'll see a control panel that will help you navigate the 12 exhibits. There's one master exhibit showing a very similar map to what you see here, and then the 12 exhibits showing you the 12 different parcels. At the board's pleasure, I can walk us through the 12 parcels, or I can conclude this presentation if the board would like to peruse the maps on their own. You can also follow through the web app or with the screenshots I included at the end of the presentation after this slide.
Or do you need him or desire to go through every single item, or what is your pleasure? I mean, I don't need a debrief of every item. I mean, realistically, we also are not able, to your point, most, if not all, are unsuitable for further building.
I think more investigation would be
Yeah.
needed.
So, yeah, I see it as being informational for now.
Yeah.
Thank you.
I agree.
Dr. Kimball?
And I agree. I mean, I think that if we wanted to go as the board, property by property, and just saying, okay, we don't need to have an extensive conversation on that, moving on, like the 8th Street parking lot, for example, I would say, I don't know that we can touch that. So I mean, I think that there might be value in us at least having very brief conversation on each one of these properties.
Go one by one.
But I don't know that it necessarily, we don't need staff presentation on it necessarily. because all the details already included here, which this interactive map is so spectacular. I was so grateful to receive it. Thank you.
Of course. I hope it offers y'all context when you zoom in into a parcel. At least you can zoom out and see how it relates to our other school board properties.
Absolutely. And so board, for the pleasure of the rest of us, we'll go through slide by slide. I can lead it real quick just to be efficient. Let's talk about the Anthony North Extension. Any comments, questions, or concerns? All right. Hearing none. 8th Street parking lot. We obviously know there's nowhere else for them to park, so.
Right. I mean, it is interesting and helpful to know that it is school district property. I actually had a community member reach out to me a couple of years ago asking me about it, thinking that we were parking on city land. I don't even know, just the way we park on it, and we're just not taking good care of it, and like all these things that people in the historic district tend to have concerns about. So, but we're keeping that piece, in my opinion.
We certainly don't have a place for people to park otherwise, so.
That's my understanding.
Fessden North Extension. We already know we have more land than we could ever need at Fessden, and apparently we have more than we even thought we needed.
So my question about this, we were told we have 30 some odd acres, I think, at Fessenden, or do you have the total of the whole property?
I thought it was in the
Not
hundreds.
on me. but it-
President, it is 20 plus that 10, so it's 30.
Okay.
Yeah, I thought at one point it was like more than 100 acres, but that may be an old stat. But regardless, it's more than 30 acres. So back to the old vision that I presented long ago, it's ample space to build those dormitories that used to be there and make it a state park. That would be an immersive state park experience, and would be the special needs shelter and all of the things, but that just will continue to float out there in the atmosphere.
To the state, far beyond our purview.
As well, and keeping in mind, if I may, that we just received a presentation that Fessenden is at 97% capacity. So,
Yeah. You know, if Ocala Park Estates and those parts of Marion County continue to grow, there may very well be a need to
More.
expand.
Yeah.
Potentially. Fort McCoy North Extension. 8.67 acres. Okay. Northwest Transportation Hub at South Extension, 15 acres. All right. Dr. Campbell, did you have something?
Not really. I mean, building a new transportation hub is expensive, so we're not even going to explore that at this point. And I don't, at some point, I do think it provides a little bit of value just to say, I mean, it can't be a school site. 14 acres isn't big enough for a school site.
Yeah, it is.
Perhaps an elementary, Ms. Usher is saying.
For the standard elementary school at 880 to 900, it is recommended 15 acres. So,
Okay. Well, looking at the bigger picture and seeing what in Fessenden, and anyway, I'm not saying that we need a new school in Northwest, but it's an interesting location. Okay, moving on.
Reddick North,
This one's an interesting one.
God bless.
So the school board owns a single-family lot on a mostly undeveloped street in a subdivision in Reddick. This is north of the Reddick Collier Elementary.
Can we just sell this one? I'd love to just sell this one. I mean, I know it's not worth much, but like, I mean, why do we have it? Like, I guess is it gonna cost us more to sell it than it would even, I mean,
Well, so this is not a formal appraisal, one. Two, still figuring out when the school board obtained this property. I've gotten to the records in the 70s where it went to the county, still trying to investigate when it came to us.
okay. I mean, realistically, a quarter acre in Reddick is probably not worth much at all.
The assessed value is $850.
Well, I mean, it's not probably $850, but a quarter acre in Reddick is not worth a bunch. I mean, an acre on the north end these days is going for about $20,000 to $30,000. That's what the real world is paying for an acre on the north end. Whether that's, you know, reflected somewhere, I can tell you that's what it's going for. But certainly, maybe not in a quick little neighborhood in Reddick. So
That's kind of what I saw when I was trying to
Yeah.
look at comparables.
I don't even know how much it would cost to sell it. So
I wonder why we needed it.
It feels like it was a land swap. Like there was something that they needed of ours, and that just happened to be a vacant spot that they had. But
Where is
we'll-
the new Reddick Park in comparison to this, I wonder? I guess I'd have
You
to
zoom out, if you're on the web app, if you zoom out, you can, if you know how it looks on a satellite image, you can kind of get your context that way.
I'd have to look, because, they've just put a new park in Reddick, so I don't know if this is near the Reddick Park, but I'd have to look. Let's see. Oh, I think it's like right behind the park. It was probably a land swap, Dr. Campbell, to your point. How old are these images? Is this a live map?
That's a good question. I would have to look at that.
Because the park just opened recently, but it's not directly behind the park, but it's probably really close to the park. So that's probably what it was, because the county owned the land. It was the old sheriff MCSO location is where the park is now, right? So the county has some land up there that was for the sheriff's office back in the day. So if I had to guess. But I could ask my kinfolk, because my kinfolk would definitely be able to tell you. So I can talk to the lineage in Reddick and Fairfield and tell you what it was, probably. All right, any other comments on Reddick North? Okay, Saddlewood North Extension.
Yeah, this is valuable property, especially now that that road has become 4-laned there. 3 acres you can't do a ton with, but you can do a little bit. I would be interested in, if I'm the only board member, so be it, but I would be interested in exploring what that would look like to sell that. It's full of trees right now. It's not like we have people parking there. Granted, it would be helpful if it was cleared and we had staff parking.
Far away, though.
But it's, that's the only, I think that this is potentially more valuable today than it was a year ago.
It probably will be more valuable in 5 years than it is right now, too, based on what's happening there.
Potentially.
So, I don't disagree with Dr. Campbell. I'd be interested to see it, how much it would appraise for. I think it's too far away for parking. Functionally speaking, I don't know that it would. And honestly, the side parking lot of Saddlewood is big enough. Nobody wants to park there. Because it's an odd way to get into the campus. But that we have more than enough parking at Saddlewood, just nobody wants to park where we have more than enough parking. And this is only adjacent to the place where people know, where nobody wants to park. So, I don't know that would solve that particular problem, but.
Okay, I'm glad you said that, Dr. James, because when I pull up there, there's always cars, kind of like at Westport. They pull on the side of the road and all up in there.
Yeah, but that's just because they don't want to park in the bus loop and then walk around because of the functionality of it all.
They don't have.
Especially when we went to single point of entry. So when we weren't single point of entry, I'm sure if we go back to, if we were to ask Ms. Lapira what things were like back in 2018, she would probably have a different perspective. But once we did single point of entry and we forced people through a common entrance, it really impacted where people like to park.
So, and back to your other question about how old this map is, the housing complex that is built across the street is just a pile of dirt on this, so that gives you some context.
Well, and I don't see the playground either. So that parcel, what would I probably would call with 3 acres or so that's built out with the playground, right just north of Saddlewood. I pass it every Sunday for church. That's the only reason I know. But there's a little playground, and then it looks like a little parking lot of sorts. I don't know exactly who owns that. It might be the neighborhood's little parking lot, but playground. But anyhow, I would love to know how much, if we're in the business of getting appraisals, I know that costs a little bit of money, but I would be interested in knowing how much this is worth. I don't know if that's the pleasure of the rest of the board, but I certainly, if we're doing it for item A, which is obviously the technology in Central Elementary School, I'd be interested in getting an appraisal for this land.
Chairman James, Mr. Welch just told me that the Risk Management Department is conducting appraisals of all our school sites. I don't know if the one with the north extension, should we include the contiguous property in those appraisals? Because right now it would just be Saddlewood. It would not incorporate the 3 acres. But he just mentioned that his risk management is conducting appraisals right now for school sites.
Oh, well, I would say certainly, if we're doing the work already and everything that has an extension, like, they're already out there. They can just tag along the other parts. It's obviously a separate parcel, but they can do that, right? I mean, they can do anything we pay them to do. That's what I know the answer to be.
Yeah, just to speak on that a little bit, we can certainly make sure that any of the other adjacent parcels or kind of parcels floating out there are included. We'll get with facilities, but that work is underway. So it's actually very timely, and I think that would help to inform exactly what we're talking about here today. So,
Perfect.
and I had some more information to share, but we'll wait on another
Okay.
session for that.
Okay, so then we'll get an appraisal for that. So moving on to the Marion Oaks Elementary site, this is obviously the one that has been tossed around as a K-8 or some kind of other potential new development, at least that, taking it back a couple years, that's been the conversation. That is what this parcel is, I'm pretty sure. Any thoughts, board?
Yeah, we don't need to give up any land in Marion Oaks.
Yep. Okay, we have literally nothing on Southeast Mary Camp Road, which is,
That
Very
feels like another trade.
yes.
It's so small, I included that in the title just because it's 0.06 acres. It's also landlocked. I've reached out to our friends in the county, seeing what's the viability of the site, if any. It's a very, very small parcel in an undeveloped area, in the county,
Yeah,
unincorporated
pitch
area.
a tent on it? Probably not.
Is it Silver Spring Shores? Like, is it, because that's Locust Place Court. Let me go to the big map. This one's number 10. It's tough to,
You can't even actually see it if you zoom out too far.
I know. Okay, I was just trying to figure out what is like, how close it is to some of the other things. It again, feels like,
Oh, it's almost to Lake Weir.
okay, that's,
It's out there.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Okay.
Tried to do
Oh,
a site
wow, it
visit.
is.
It's
Okay.
out there, and it's in a very undeveloped area, very wooded. We would need to take our hiking boots, maybe a machete
it's in Candler.
to get to it.
How bizarre. Okay, well,
All right. And then Sunrise,
Depository.
yeah.
no, don't even mention the words of sand skink.
Use it for a field trip research area. There's probably some gopher tortoises here and
Yeah.
skinks and
Sure.
scrub jays and
Oh, yeah.
a place to live.
Some
It's
gopher
only
tortoises,
0.6
maybe.
acres.
Sunrise Extension.
Use it for research.
Interesting.
Sunrise Extension looks like essentially the perimeter around Sunrise.
Yeah. But there's houses that are separating Sunrise from the extension?
Yeah, this is a collection of parcels, and it's an interesting kind of grouping of parcels here.
But this is kind of how that back entrance of Sunrise, you like essentially come through the neighborhood, which is kind of how this is probably all panned out. Because that's why they don't like to use, I remember when we were talking about adding portables a year and a half ago, and it was, we essentially have that back entrance that is just like, well, it's gonna be essentially what the high school looks like. The
But
neighborhood ends and the school begins.
well, I mean, but they could be sold off in separate parcels as, I mean, this is all like residential, all, I don't know, I'm just, if you, the one section to the, what is that? I don't even know, to the right of all of Sunrise, where you can see where the blue of Sunrise ends, and then these strange red ones, but you've got 3 houses there in a cul-de-sac on this drawing, I mean, on this picture anyway. So like all of those other red essentially would be like individual parcels for homes. I don't know if that.
What it looks like.
There's certainly no viability in us building anything else in any of those vertical and horizontal lines of, and maybe Marion Oaks lots aren't that pricey right now either, and so maybe we just hold on to this, but I don't see any reason why eventually that couldn't be sold and parceled off into individual lots, because that's all that's gonna be viable for.
Yes, I would agree. Because certainly there's nothing we're gonna do with it. So from a security perspective, it felt fine to do, because right now it's kind of a nice tree barrier of sorts. And board, I think I was wrong, because that the other parcel is not the K-8 that I had said, because the 12 acres in Marion Oaks is not the K-8. The next slide is the K-8.
Yeah, the other one was a potential elementary site if we needed
Yes,
another one.
yes, I had this mixed up, but anything else with Sunrise Extension? I mean, I guess we're gonna be waiting essentially on these appraisals regardless, and then the board can determine which ones we wanna hear. Maybe we can get a recap of, once we get the appraisals, we could get kind of like a 2.0 of this that includes the appraised value, or no, we wouldn't talk about the appraised value publicly.
Well, I'm assuming that for our appraisal purposes that we're having on all properties, that is likely going to be made public. What I would do is if we were looking at development and targeting a particular commercial portion of the real estate market, that we get 3 appraisals and then pick the middle one. But that was true of larger, highly significant properties, prominent properties, not so much properties that are, smaller. So it's
Okay.
a choice for you to make.
Well, I think the board wants to get clarification, on, what I've heard the board say is we'd be interested in having a conversation about a few of these different extension pieces and selling them off since they deem no purpose to us. And so, being good financial stewards, our hope is that we're trying to liquidate as many assets that will bring us no value. So, I think what I'd like to summarize, board, when we get to the end of this, is which ones we'd like to move forward with, understanding what's our next steps, in addition to A, which is what we identified at the beginning of the presentation, so that whatever needs to happen between the appraisals and the 1, 2, 3, and all the things, we can have some understanding on, right? Does that work for you, board? Okay, so let's finish Sunrise Extension, and then we have the Marion K-8 site, which, obviously, I think we've all said we need to hold on to.
Do you want more information on Sunrise too?
I think I'm gonna summarize it, but yes,
Okay.
yes.
Yeah, on the Sunrise Extension, I agree with you. The piece of property, or the piece of this parcel that essentially is tree lined, that runs parallel to Southwest 149th Street. But I think the sections that run kind of, I don't know, in this funny little shape that almost looks like a hook that is running parallel to Southwest 43rd Terrace Road, I would be interested in knowing if there's value in just those, because I can't imagine why we would want to own something on the other side of property. So I agree with the tree line completely, but separating this parcel out into, that's probably what, an acre and 2 acres at least there of potentially individual sites. So,
Yes. So I'll summarize us. I'll rapid fire summarize us when we're done.
Okay.
Marion Oaks K-8 site, I think we all probably agree, we don't need to touch that.
nope.
I do want to point out that this, so it's been discussed as a K-8 site, but that there's one developed parcel right in the middle, and it has a single-family home
I see that.
already there. And unfortunately, it sold recently, but just.
And that's on our parcel? No.
No, it is a privately owned parcel. So just to give the board a heads up.
So we own every parcel around it except that one parcel?
Yeah, that's what it looks like.
That's gonna be like that person who refused to sell and they built a highway around them.
Yes.
For the love of the green grass.
What did you say?
No.
Are there any other parcels in there that we need to own that we don't currently? I mean,
There are some on the edges that perhaps would create more of a contiguous shape, but that's the one that's kind of
Nothing else in the
smack
middle.
dab in the middle.
I mean, the positive here is 77 acres is a lot of land, so there's a lot of room for manipulation there, but
wow.
that's just par
That's
for,
why we needed a planner.
that's par for the course.
You wouldn't have allowed that to happen. I believe that in you. You would have been paying attention to everything that the county was approving and all the things.
Hope so. But there must have been a reason why we didn't acquire that at the time.
Oh, my goodness. Okay.
Okay. And then the Vanguard North extension. Any comments, board? I think for now we need to hold on to it.
Yeah.
I think that we still have things to do in town that we need to figure out.
Right.
So, okay, I'm gonna go back and recap us. So, starting with slide number 12, the Anthony North extension, were we wanting to know more about a value and selling? Or were we just holding it? for now.
This board member thinks we hold it until we figure out what we're doing with Spar Anthony, and then
Sounds
we
good.
do it all together.
Sounds good. 8th Street parking lot, I remember us saying, no way, Jose, on anything there. Fesden North Extension, not doing anything with that right now. Fort McCoy, North Extension. Board, I don't see us with our rapid development in Fort McCoy. Would you like to know more about what it would look like to sell this parcel?
Yes.
Yes?
I do question at some point, does all of the land value that we have go into like our overall credit rating? Because that's a part of the, so at some point, some of this.
Well, yeah, I mean,
important too.
44,000, I mean, if it's only I agree, if we're talking about like 77 acres and, hundreds of millions of dollars in value, then maybe, but I think these one-offs, every penny counts, but, it's not gonna make that big of an impact. So do you want to understand Fort McCoy more, or no? Yes? Board Member Thrower?
I think it's good to get information before we just say, hey, we want to sell it.
Oh, yes, no, what I'm saying though is, some of these appraisals, if we are at all thinking we want to list it and have a conversation about selling it, the way I understand it is those appraisals don't need to be public, right?
That's correct.
Okay, so if we are even going to consider a conversation about it, then we need to preserve it from going public. That's what I'm trying to just accomplish. So how do we feel about Fort McCoy?
It's landlocked, anyway, it's a very odd parcel, sure, why not? But unless the person who owns the parcel in front of it wants to purchase it, that's.
They may, yeah, you never know, they might. So we'll hold back Fort McCoy's appraisal so that the board can have further discussion about Fort McCoy's north extension. The transportation hub, south extension, I believe we're not gonna do anything with that right now.
Correct.
Reddick North, I believe we wanted to, understand its evaluation and potentially moving forward with selling that small parcel. Saddlewood North Extension, we wanted to understand its evaluation and potential sale of that parcel. Southeast Marion Oaks Elementary Site, holding. We are going to hold the Nature Conservatory in Southeast Mary Camp Road.
And hope all the sand skinks go
And hope
there.
it can be a new home for gopher tortoises. The Sunrise Extension, we'd like to understand its evaluation and potential for sale. And we will hold the K-8 site for Southwest Marion Oaks.
And our friend.
And then holding the Vanguard site.
Just to point out with the Vanguard North Extension, there is some floodplains in that property,
Yeah. It's a little wet.
a little wet.
It's gonna need some groundwork if we do anything there. Okay, well, that wraps up our site utilization update. Thank you for doing a very thorough job with that, and welcome to the team.
Thank you all.
Board, any further comments on this before we go to public comment? Okay, any public comment on site utilization? All right, hearing none. Dr. Brewer, did you have anything to add before we move on to meeting reminders and board comments? Anything about the site utilization? I didn't come to you.
I wanted to recognize two requests that I heard from the board today for us to bring back to you. Is the circulation numbers in the media centers compared to school grade data. We'll bring that back to you. Also, the ICROC report from the quarterly meeting. So I have noted both of those items that we'll bring back.
Moving on to meeting reminders, a special school board meeting is scheduled for January 27th, 2026. No, not a special, just a school board meeting, I apologize. Additionally, a special school board meeting is scheduled for, that is not true, there is no more special school board meeting scheduled for February 5th at this point. And there will not be a special school board meeting February 5th. So recognizing board, we're going to our new process, which is if there is a necessity for the meeting, it will be communicated and published at the time of necessity. There will be an administrative briefing and work session on February 5th at 9 a.m. Moving into board comments, Attorney Powers, anything from you?
Nothing from legal, thank you.
Okay, Ms. Martinez Young? And Dr. Brewer, anything further? All right, Dr. Campbell?
I had already mentioned about school choice applications, and since Mr. Ayers is here, he can hear this in person. I am interested in getting that data for us. I know that it just helps us understand future planning for additional programming that we might need. I wrote down specifically, ask about school choice applications. I'm interested in knowing by program, by school, and even by address that the current applicants are trying to come from. So all of that, and then by the current school that if we have that current school that applicant is coming from. Even if they're not coming from a Marion County public school, okay, perfect. So I can tell you again what those were. Okay, perfect. So I think that'll be helpful again for us to see who all is coming to us and what that looks like, and which schools continue to have enormous wait lists and which schools don't. And are there programs specifically that have longer wait lists? All of that from a school choice perspective. And since that window closes very soon, interested in that. And then the only other comment that I had is just the reminder board. I know that you all know this, but for the public, with Tallahassee being, we are in state legislation timeframe and everything is moving forward with session. Next board meeting, which is January 27th, coming up on Tuesday, I will be in Tallahassee already. Florida School Board Association Day in the legislature happens that week, and some of my responsibilities will be starting on Tuesday evening, and so I intend to do that one telephonically, as you all are already aware. And then the board meeting immediately following that, and the first one in February, will also be a time that I'm in Tallahassee. That one is the day before the Marion County Day, right? I'm just double checking my dates. And you will remember that we brought that up during the organizational meeting when I said, do we want to change that meeting date? And we said we would address it at the time. And so we're addressing it at the time. I will be present, and I believe another board member maybe as well, representing the school board at a Marion County elected officials dinner on that Tuesday evening. I believe that dinner doesn't start until 7 or 7:30, so we should be able to participate telephonically, separately, but telephonically as well for that meeting. So just an unfortunate circumstance, just session the way it is, and our responsibilities and what we try to do to try and push forth legislation that really impacts every student in the state, in addition to students in Marion County. I can assure our community that we are very active and very vocal on legislative issues, and that was one of the first things I realized as a school board member. There were lots of things that I had in mind to change, and the best way you can change them is in Tallahassee. And so that's why we have been so active and vocal, and will continue to do so, and looking forward to having continued advocacy with you all in Tallahassee next week. Thank you.
All right, Board Member Conrad.
Thank you. Just that I will not be here on the evening of the 27th. I will also be in Tallahassee. Just been working on the committee with America 250, and so I'll be there for that. And that's all I have, Chair.
Oh, that's on February 10th.
You're talking about February 10th?
February 10th.
No, I'm talking about January,
So then, because you're also not planning to participate on the 10th.
hold on, January 27th. School board meeting, but also will be in Tallahassee with the board on the 28th.
Okay.
Correct? Is that right? Do I have it in my calendar correct?
The board is
If you're
visiting
going
on
to
the
day in the
29th.
legislature, yes.
Yes. So the 28th is the,
Day in the legislature.
okay,
with
thank you.
FSBA.
I was reading it backwards. And then the 11th, is that correct?
The 11th is the
Marion
Marion
County
Day.
Days,
So
and the dinner
February
is
10th.
before, so it's the 10th, correct. All right, thank you.
I need you to confirm, I'm sorry. Because 3 board members have to be present for us to have a meeting, so I just want to make sure I get confirmation. And obviously, Reverend Cummings is not here right now, and so we do not have access to his schedule, but we cannot have meetings if there are not 3 bodies in these seats. So I don't want to speak for Reverend Cummings and his schedule. I certainly would not attempt to do that, but our next meeting is next Tuesday,
January 27th.
January 27th. And so,
I will be here the 27th.
okay. Yes.
So we have 3 for sure. We have
However, on the 10th, which I can get into, Because we are visiting with legislators on Thursday, the 29th.
Correct. But my responsibilities in Tallahassee begin on Tuesday.
Absolutely. I was just making sure that it was clear that we're not visiting with legislators on the 28th, we're visiting with legislators on the 29th. Yes, okay. So, we do have to discuss, and I can in my comments, but we do need to discuss February 10th.
February 10th? Tuesday, February 10th.
Essentially, the only discussion is to ensure that Reverend Cummings will be present for the meeting. If you're gonna be present for the meeting and I'm gonna be present for the meeting, then we're good. But if Reverend Cummings is not present for the meeting, then we have no meeting.
Correct.
So,
I will be here.
so,
God willing, and the creek don't rise.
So, and we just transparently all need to understand, like, if for some reason Reverend Cummings can't be here, then one of you has to come, stay back, or we're canceling the meeting.
I will, Dr. J.
Okay.
If, it really is my pleasure to go and be part of the dinner and the celebration, but I do not want the work of the district to stop. So if he is not going to be here, I will be here.
Okay, well, then that solves it.
Okay.
Okay. Did you have any other comments?
No, that's good. Thank
Okay.
you.
Board Member Thur.
Just briefly, we have so many great things that are happening, so many great things, coming up. I'm always excited for Literacy Week. It's become a tradition to visit Mr. Braden's class and read to his kindergarten class, which I don't get to hang out a lot with kindergartners, so it's always so much fun, and he always gives me a heads up. He's like, oh, this is a very active class this year, and last year I exercised them all to the point where they wanted to sit down and be quiet, so I guess it worked out. But it's just a really fun time, and Leadership MCPS is going to be at Maplewood and Hillcrest soon, both in my district, both very near and dear to my heart, so I look forward to stopping in and thanking all the folks that participate in that and that are willing to donate their time and talent and treasure to find out, who we are and what we do. So I'll leave it for that for today. It's been a really good spirited meeting. Thank you.
Thank you. So I will be brief as well. My question would be for Thursday, the 29th, Dr. Campbell, do we have an agenda yet for meeting with legislators?
Jessica Janasiewicz, I was speaking with her on, what's today? Thursday. Tuesday, I believe. She was putting in all of the requests. The committee committee meetings won't come out until tomorrow, and so we should have something a little bit more concrete, at least by first of the week. But I requested that they be between 10 and 5, but so we'll just so that way that would give plenty of time for people to get there. Also, if you are participating in Day in the Legislature, there is a coffee that morning with legislators to come by from like 8 to 10. So that's why I said potentially from 10 to 5, but we'll just wait and see what their committee meeting schedule. But she knows she's working on it.
Okay, wonderful. And then we've covered the meetings for the next 2 meetings just to ensure we have 3 bodies present. My only comment for Dr. Brewer, Mr. Whitehouse, one of the things we discussed today when we were talking about site-based budgeting, and honestly, I don't remember how we got on the conversation, but we talked about ratios a little bit. One referendum, that's when it came up. And so, Mr. Whitehouse had mentioned we weren't gonna be receiving any information on ratios, seeing as we're going to site-based budgeting. And one of the things I remembered that I know for sure but I think, other board members were strong champions of was strengthening our ESE ratios. Because there was a real heartburn around the necessity to get to that, 2 or 3 adults to 7 to 10 kids. We even went as far as regulating how many kids were in each classroom, etc. And what I heard Mr. Whitehouse say was that staff was going to be laying some expectations for certain things, like principals, guidance counselors, clerks. If I'm in the minority here, then that's fine, but as a board member, I would like to know, I'd like to at least know what those expectations you're lining out are, but then I would also like to know what's our plan, because there is no law about ESE ratios that I'm aware of.
Right.
And so I have a little, maybe a lot, pause and hesitation around taking up guardrails on something that I think, since I've been a board member, we have worked very diligently to attempt to preserve, because we understand just how challenging those classrooms are. And the hope would be that the principal who's doing site-based budgeting respects the guardrail. But I also know, as a business owner myself, when you start looking at it and you start cutting things and you got to trim the fat and you got to figure out what's going and what's staying, you start weighing things out. And as a board, I know this board member has at least pause around allowing ESC ratios to be on the chopping block of things to trim. So, again, if I'm in the minority on that, that's okay. But it causes me pause. So Dr. Brewer?
Yeah, I'd just like to comment. I think we just have to be real careful with giving these ownership to the principals to make the best decisions for their school with site-based budgeting and giving them too many expectations and requirements, because then it takes away their responsibility as a school leader. But I do appreciate what you just said, and I believe our principals understand and truly value the work of the instructional paraprofessional or the inclusion teacher in the classroom. So I don't believe that's unreasonable for us to give a range or a basic expectation to ensure all of our students with disabilities needs are met.
Especially because some of them probably have ratios set in their IEPs.
Correct.
And so, I mean, we have to adhere to their IEP
Yes.
legally. And so if a kid is a 1 to 4 in their IEP, then we can't put ourselves in positions where we're board member Thrower.
Yes, and that was going to be my comment, that the IEP, drives that, and then also reality. And I think what the reality is that we continue to look and try to recruit as many wonderful ESE teachers and paraprofessionals as we can find and support them so they don't leave. When your campus is being turned upside down, that's not something that any administrator, would want. So I would like to think that they would prioritize that naturally, plus with the added protections of the individualized education plan, we should be okay. But it never hurts to say it, from the dais, we see you, we feel you, we hear you. If you don't have the money or you don't think you have the money, ask your, area superintendent for support and speak with Anna Williams-Jones and,
I just wanted to make sure, at least I have articulated, we've really prioritized that as a board. And so I not that anyone's going to intentionally put it by the wayside, but when budgets get tight, things get hard. And if something's got to go, and I just want to make sure that's on the front mind of our principals as they're going into the season, a new season, a first season for almost all of us in site-based budgeting and taking ownership of that, because I agree with Dr. Brewer. Certainly the more restrictions we put in, the less opportunity we give for autonomy, and that's not what I'm trying to do. But I do just want to identify what I see as certainly something that's very important. So that is going to conclude all of my comments. And that will conclude the business for today's work session. There being no further comment, we will adjourn this meeting at 12:52.